Moonlight turned the puddles in Astraphen's alleys into pale coins, scattered and out of reach. Liora Vale watched them glimmer as she crouched on the slate roof opposite the apothecary, arms wrapped around her knees against the wind. From here, she could see directly through the warped glass window into the shop's back room, where old Ina moved like a thin, irritated stork among shelves of dusty jars. The bell above the front door chimed. A moment later, a familiar, uneven cough carried out to the street. Leora's chest tightened. She slid down the roof tiles, caught the gutter with one hand, and swung herself to the ground with more grace than the fall deserved. Her boots splashed into one of the silver puddles. Cold seeped through worn leather, but she barely noticed as she pushed open the apothecary door. The smell hit first. Sharp herbs, sour tonics, and the faint metallic tang of boiled coin. Aaron stood at the counter, his shoulders hunched under his too thin coat. He was only 16, but the illness had carved careful shadows under his eyes and hollowed his cheeks. He turned as she entered, his face pale and hopeful in the lamplight. "Liora," he said softly. The cough took him again, cutting his name into pieces. "You should be in bed," she said, crossing the room in 3 quick strides. "What are you doing here?" Old Ina made a disapproving sound, her fingers still pinching dried leaves into a packet. "He came for the tincture you were supposed to pick up last week, girl." Liora forced a smile, though her stomach twisted. "Things have been slow." Ina snorted. "Things are slow for everyone. The world doesn't stop turning because one boy needs medicine." She tied off the little paper packet with a jerk. "It's 30 moon pieces now. Prices changed after the lunar envoy arrived. Trade taxes." She said the last 2 words like a curse. 30? Liora repeated, sharply. "It was 20, Aaron said, voice barely above a whisper. "Was," Ina said. "The ingredients come from across the veil. Moon-touched, they say. Moon-touched means expensive. You want to complain, go shout at the governor, not at me." Liora swallowed back the hot retort forming on her tongue. Picking a fight wouldn't help Aaron breathe any easier. She reached into her coat pocket and laid out the coins she'd counted 3 times on the rooftop. 12 dull copper crows, 4 tarnished moon pieces, and a single chipped sunstone token that might pass if the light was bad and Ina was feeling charitable. "It's what I have," Liora said quietly. "I can bring more, in a few days." Ina's eyes flicked over the coins. "You owed for last week's tincture, which I gave you on a promise. Now you want this week's on hope. Hope doesn't pay for dried astrus and moonfern." Aaron's breath wheezed faintly. Liora could hear it over the ticking of the shop's wall clock.
"Please," Liora said, letting the words sit naked between them. "He's getting worse. You know he is." Old Ina's gaze softened for a heartbeat, then firmed again, like clay fired in a kiln. "I can give you half," she said. "Watered down. It'll ease the coughing, not the root. You find the rest by next week." Leora's jaw clenched. Half wouldn't be enough. But nothing else in the room was moving. The jars stayed stubbornly still. The coins on the counter refused to multiply. "Take it," Aaron whispered. "It's fine. I feel better today." He did not look better. His fingers trembled where they gripped the counter's edge. Liora nodded, as if this were a reasonable compromise and not a quiet, miserable failure. "All right, half." Ina swept most of the coins into her till, leaving 2 moon pieces and the chipped sunstone token. "Keep those. You'll need bread." She slid the small glass vial toward Liora. The liquid inside was a dull, bluish green. "Morning and night," she said brusquely. "And keep him warm. The damp in those alleys will finish what the sickness started." Liora took the vial, careful not to let her hands shake. "Thank you," she said, and meant it, even as anger chewed at her. Outside, the night air wrapped around them like a wet cloak. Liora tucked the vial safely into an inner pocket and turned to Aaron. "You're not coming out alone again," she said.
If you slip in one of those puddles? He gave a ghost of a grin. You're one to talk. You just climbed off a roof. Roof tiles don't carry the pox, she said. Alleys do. Aaron coughed again, but the laugh tucked into it made it almost bearable. They walked in silence for a few moments, feet splashing through reflected moonlight. You don't have to keep doing this, he said quietly. If the work is dangerous, I can— You are not picking pockets, Liora cut in sharply. You can barely walk to the apothecary, and it's not dangerous. That was a lie, slick and easy. Aaron looked up at her, pale eyes earnest. I hear things, Liora. When I go to the well, when I wait at the healer's door. People talk about a girl with quick hands and quicker feet, light as shadow. A shadow wouldn't argue this much, she said, and people talk too much when they're bored. Ignore them. He studied her face. You're not sleeping. Sleep is overrated. Liora. There it was, the quiet way he said her name when he wanted to be the older sibling for once. She kept her gaze on the cramped buildings ahead, where crooked chimneys stabbed the sky. I'm working, she said, more gently. The city's full of fools with too many coins and not enough sense. It's no crime to remind them the world is hungry. His hand brushed hers. We are hungry too. Exactly. She squeezed his fingers. Come on. We'll get you home, get this down your stubborn throat, and tomorrow I'll find more coin. Properly, before you ask. No one will miss what I take. The lie tasted like iron. They reached their narrow building. The stairs groaned as they climbed. Inside their small room, Liora coaxed the dying fire back to life and wrapped Aaron in the patched wool blanket. Steam drifted from the chipped mug as she thinned the tincture with hot water, just as Ina had taught her. Aaron swallowed with a grimace. Tastes like boiled swamp, he muttered. Swamp is extra, Liora said. You're getting the cheap version. He smiled, and the lines of worry in her chest eased a little. She waited until his eyelids drooped, and his breaths, while still ragged, found a steadier rhythm. Only then did she cross to the corner where she kept her things. The small wooden box under the loose floorboard held her life in arranged fragments. Lockpicks wrapped in oiled cloth, a coil of sturdy twine, a narrow-bladed knife that had belonged to their father, and a handful of coins that looked pathetically small now. Beside them lay a folded scrap of damp, ink-smudged paper. Liora unfolded it, smoothing it out on her knee. The message had passed from hand to hand across Asterfen's underbelly, changing coin and company until it reached her. Moonstone Mask, Lunar Envoy's townhouse. Guarded but not spellbound. Worth more than any of us will see again. No name was signed, but she knew the handwriting, a narrow, tilting script with letters that never quite obeyed the lines. Garen, her old mentor, had once called her fingers more honest than his, though neither of them had owned a truthful coin between them. She traced the words, Moonstone Mask, with one fingertip. Moon-touched, Ina had said, of the expensive ingredients. The same word whispered in taverns now, whenever someone spoke of the lunar envoys. Moon-touched fabrics, moon-touched steel, moon-touched masks that could open doors no mortal had walked through in 100 years. If half the rumors about the mask were true, it might fetch enough coin to keep Aaron in medicines for a year, maybe more. Maybe a healer who didn't water down their remedies. Or she could wear it once, just once, and step through whatever hidden door it opened. Bring back enough from the other side that coin would never be a problem again. The thought was reckless, bright, and terrifying. She refolded the paper. No, she would steal it and sell it. That was all. Liora slid the lockpicks into her sleeve, tucked the knife into her boot, and pulled on her darkest coat. As she fastened the worn buttons, she glanced at Aaron. His face in the firelight looked younger, like it had before the fever, before their parents had gone, and the world had grown new edges. I'll fix this, she whispered.
I promise. She extinguished all but one candle, left burning low by the bedside, and slipped out into the thin-blooded night. Asterfen changed after midnight. The merchant quarter, all bustling noise and haggling by day, turned skeletal and still. Lanterns burned low. The watchman's footsteps echoed distantly on the main road, never deigning to enter the narrower, poorer streets. The lunar envoy's townhouse, however, blazed like a fragment of the sky that had fallen into the city and taken offense. Liora watched from the shelter of a market awning across the road. The townhouse rose 3 stories, pale stone drinking in moonlight. Its tall windows gleamed with glass, so clear it made the rest of Asterfen's panes look like cloudy pond water. 2 narrow towers flanked the main structure, their rooftops sharp as quills. Silver-threaded banners hung on either side of the front door, bearing an unfamiliar sigil, a crescent moon encircling a droplet of light. 2 guards stood at the entrance, their armor catching every scrap of light, but their movements had the heavy, grounded quality of city men, not lunar fae. Likely hired from the governor's garrison, humans on human terms. Liora relaxed slightly. She knew how to slip past humans. She circled the block, counting windows and doors. The rear lane was quieter, lined with stacked crates and empty barrels that stank faintly of wine and sea salt. A single lantern burned by the back door, more token than practical. Liora waited, patience stretched like string. Eventually, the door creaked open. A gray-haired woman in a plain apron stepped out with a basket, muttering to herself as she picked her way to the refuse heap. Liora moved as the woman's back turned. 3 quick strides, 1 silent breath, and she was inside, the door easing shut behind her before the woman even bent down to dump the scraps. The corridor she found herself in smelled of lemon oil and unfamiliar spices. Light from a single wall lamp painted the stone floor gold. She pressed against the cool wall, listening. Voices came from somewhere ahead and above, low, melodic, carrying words she didn't understand. The language lifted like song. Liora's heart thumped faster, but her hands stayed steady. The note had said the mask was not spellbound. Guarded, yes, but guard duty was a boring job, and bored people got careless. Magic, on the other hand, she had no answer for magic. She slipped down the corridor, counting doorways, listening at each. One revealed a pantry, shelves sagging under sacks of grain and jars. Another a laundry room, with a pile of linens and the slow drip of drying cloth. A third opened onto a narrow stair leading upward. She took the stairs. On the second floor, the house changed. The wood underfoot softened. Carpets muffled her steps. Paintings lined the walls, all of them variations on the same theme. Moons in different phases, hanging above landscapes that looked both familiar and wrong, as if someone had tilted the world. At the end of the hall, a pair of double doors stood slightly ajar. Light leaked through, thin and silver instead of the warm gold of lamplight. Liora approached on silent feet, every sense alert. She breathed shallowly, refusing to let the air catch in her throat. Inside, she could just make out a voice, smooth, unhurried. The lunar envoy himself, perhaps? Another voice replied, this one speaking in Asterfen's common tongue. Grateful for the gifts, Lord Nyareth, the second voice said. The governor appreciates your generosity. Mutual prosperity, the first voice replied. The cadence of his words held the faintest echo, as if each syllable touched stone and returned transformed. Your people value our crafts. We value your tides, your ports. It is a simple exchange. Some in the city think your presence has made things less simple, the second man said dryly. Prices have risen. Our goods are dear because they are infused with resonance, Nyareth said. Lunar light captured in matter. It is not an easy art. If your people cannot, they cannot afford not to. That is the truth of it. Asterfen never met a shiny thing it did not want to buy. A pause, then a lowering of his voice. And the mask, my lord, Will you be taking it with you when you return? A ripple of silence. Liora pressed closer, heart hammering. My prince has requested it, Nyareth said at last. The moon court prepares for its masquerade. It is appropriate that a human city, once part of the old accords, offers a token of goodwill. Prince. Liora knew the moon court had a ruler, but not their titles. Prince meant second to someone, or perhaps simply what they called him. The thought of such a person wanting the mask made her plan feel suddenly more reckless. The city is honored, the other man said smoothly. We will ensure it is well guarded. It is not the sort of thing your thieves can easily use, Nyareth said, amused. Without the right blood to unlock it, it is merely carved stone. But some mortals are very good at convincing themselves otherwise. Protect it from their hopes. Liora's cheeks warmed, as if he had spoken directly to her. So, the mask needed the right blood. The envoy seemed confident enough to mention thieves aloud, which meant he considered them a distant nuisance, not a genuine threat. Good, she thought. Underestimation was the best sort of shield. She slipped away from the door before their conversation ended. The note had included a rough map of the house's layout.
The mask, according to Garen's careful sketches, would be stored in a private study adjoining the main bedchamber on the 3rd floor. Liora found the second stairwell near the end of the hall and climbed, muscles coiled and ready. Halfway up, her foot caught on something, a slight rise in the stone, and she stumbled, catching herself on the rail. There was a soft click. She froze. A thin hum rose around her, like wind through a hollow bone. For a heartbeat, the air pressed against her skin, heavy and cool. Then the pressure eased, leaving a faint tingling in her fingertips. Nothing moved. No doors slammed open, no alarms rang. Liora exhaled slowly. A trip rune, perhaps, one that informed its caster without making a sound. Her neck prickled. She didn't know how long she had before someone came to investigate. Move, she told herself, and did. The 3rd floor's corridor was shorter, less adorned. Only 3 doors broke the smooth expanse. The first opened into a guest room, the second into a dressing chamber lined with wardrobes. The 3rd door was locked. Liora smiled faintly. Finally, something familiar. She knelt, pulling a thin strip of metal from her sleeve. The lock was delicate, pins shifting in a pattern she hadn't encountered before, too smooth, too precise. Mooncrafted, perhaps. But metal was metal, and human hands had still placed it in a door. She worked by touch and instinct, listening for the tiny changes in sound as the pins rose and fell. A pin clicked into place. Then another. The realization came too late. That inexorable house-wide quiet, the odd hum on the stairs, the envoy's confidence. This lock was not meant to keep people out. It was meant to see who tried to open it. When the final pin settled, the door gave a courteous little sigh and swung inward on its own. Cold light spilled over Liora, almost physical in its clarity. The room beyond was small but exquisite. Shelves lined the walls, holding scrolls and books bound in materials she didn't recognize. A low table sat in the center, upon which rested a stand made of black metal that drank in the light around it. On that stand lay the mask. It was not large, no bigger than her hand, but it commanded the room. Carved from stone so pale it was nearly translucent, it shimmered faintly with its own inner glow. The surface was smooth where it framed the eyes, then flared slightly at the sides in stylized wings. Fine filigree patterns spiraled over the cheeks and brow, like frozen starlight. The eye holes were empty and utterly dark. Liora's breath shortened. She stepped forward, compelled, boots silent on the polished floor. A mask like this could change everything. She could sell it, or she could wear it. For one heartbeat, she imagined placing it over her face and stepping forward into something else, somewhere else.
A realm of silver halls and impossible bargains. The forbidden moon court, whispered of in stories, where no mortal had walked for 100 years. It would be foolish, madness. Her fingers closed around the stand instead. The metal was strangely cool. Carefully, she lifted the mask and slipped it into the inner pocket of her coat, feeling its shape against her ribs. The air shifted. "Turn around," a voice said, calm and close. Leora's stomach dropped. She turned slowly. A man stood between her and the door, though she was sure she would have heard if it had opened. He wore a long coat of midnight blue, its fabric so fine it seemed to drink in the shadow and return it as a subtle sheen. Silver embroidery traced constellations along the cuffs and collar. His hair was dark, falling just past his jaw, and his skin held the faint luminous quality she'd heard described but never seen, like someone who had stood too long under a full moon and had it seep beneath their skin. His eyes, however, were what held her, pale, almost colorless, like distilled moonlight. They watched her not with anger, but with an unsettling, measured curiosity. "Humans," he said softly, more to himself than to her. "It is always humans." Leora's mind raced. He had to be one of the lunar envoys, perhaps Lord Nerith himself. This was worse than being caught by the city guard. Fines and jail she could understand. Foreign magic and unknown laws? Not so much. "You don't seem surprised," he observed. "Most thieves would be." "Most thieves aren't very good," she replied before she could stop herself. One dark brow rose, the faintest hint of amusement. "You triggered the stair rune, the door ward, and now you stand in my private study holding something that could alter your entire life. I would not call that very good." "Very good is a matter of perspective," she said. "I got this far." "True," he said. "There is talent in that. And desperation." His gaze flicked to the rise of her coat where the mask rested, then back to her face. "Tell me, why?" Leora considered lying. She could say she was hired, that she didn't know what the mask did, that she thought it was just another shiny thing. But his eyes held a weight that made trivial untruths feel small and pointless. "I need money," she said, "for my brother's medicine. Your visit has been very profitable for some people, not for us." "Ah," he said quietly, "cost." The word sat between them, carrying more meaning than it should. He held out a hand. "The mask." Her fingers twitched. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her coat and brought it out. Even against her work-roughened skin, it felt smoother than any stone should, like polished ice that refused to melt. She did not offer it. "What does it do?" she asked. He tilted his head, as if this amused him. "What do you think it does?" "It opens a door," she said. "To what?" "The moon court." Her mouth was dry. "The realm beyond the veil. People in the taverns talk. They say masks like this let your kind walk between worlds." "People in taverns talk a great deal," he said. "Yet here you are. Are they wrong?" His gaze drifted to the mask. For a moment, something almost like longing crossed his face, too quick to pin down. "No," he said softly, "they are not wrong." The room felt smaller suddenly, the shelves pressing closer. Leora's heart thudded in her throat. "And you just leave this lying around?" she asked, nodding at the empty stand. "In a city full of thieves?" "It is not lying around," he said.
You passed 3 wards and a half-blood guard who should have been watching the stairs instead of daydreaming. I will speak with him later." His eyes sharpened. "What is your name?" "Names are dangerous things to give strangers," Liora said. His mouth curved in the faintest ghost of a smile. "I am dangerous whether you give me your name or not, thief." "Then I don't see why I should make it easier for you." Silence stretched. She gripped the mask more tightly, feeling the etched patterns press into her palm. "You could try to run," he said mildly. "You know the way back to the stairs now. But you must sense that the wards know your shape. You would not reach the door before the house folded back on itself, and there are worse things than being caught by me." He did not sound like he bragged. He sounded like someone stating a fact as simple as the weather. "What do you want from me?" she asked. His gaze met hers again, and in the cool light she saw something new, a hint of distance, as if part of him stood somewhere else entirely, in a place only he could see. "I want," he said slowly, "to see if my visions were correct." A shiver ran up her spine. "Your what?" He stepped closer, and the air shifted around him, temperature and texture changing subtly, like the breath of a night wind through high branches. No lamp in the room flickered, yet the shadows bent slightly in his direction, as if listening. "I have seen you before, thief who won't give her name," he said. "Not in this house, not in this city." His gaze moved over her face, her braids, her worn coat. "In dreams, or not dreams. Flickers of what may be." The path was unclear, until tonight. Liora wanted to laugh, to say that he was mistaken, that there were plenty of girls with dark hair and sharp eyes in Astrafan, but something in his tone made the words catch. "How convenient," she said instead. "You find me in your private study and decide I'm the answer to my dreams?" He did not flinch. "You are not my answer," he said. "You are my problem."
And perhaps its solution. "What problem?" she demanded. "The same one that made us bring this mask here," he said. "The same one that led me to request it returned to the court. A curse." His fingers brushed his own forearm, just below the sleeve. "On my bloodline, on my people." Liora swallowed. "I'm just a thief," she said. "You've made some mistake." "Perhaps," he said. "My seer thinks so. I do not." "You want me to help break your curse?" she said flatly. "In exchange for what? Treasure? A bag of moon coins? In exchange for what you came here seeking, multiplied beyond your imagination," he said, the words otherwise unembellished. "Your brother is ill. I heard you speak of him when you thought no one listened, near the apothecary at dusk 3 nights ago." Her stomach tightened. She had not heard anyone behind her then. "You were watching me?" "I watch everyone who stares at our banners too long," he said. "The city is curious. And you just decided to let me walk into your house?" "I decided to see what you would do when given an opening." His gaze flicked to the mask again. "You did not disappoint. Should I be flattered?" "Flattered? No," he said. "Intrigued, perhaps." She studied him. The stories in taverns called the Moon Court heartless, its nobility as cold as the light they ruled. Yet this man had listened at an apothecary door. He had noticed the tremor in her voice when she'd argued over coin. He felt dangerous, in the way a steep cliff felt dangerous, steady, unmoving, but one misstep away from falling. "Say I believe you," Liora said slowly. "Say I want to make a bargain. I help you with your curse, you help my brother. How exactly am I supposed to do anything about a curse that your own people can't break?" "That," he said, "is something we will discover together. But I know this much. While the curse drags my mind through possible tomorrows, it has shown me only one thing clearly. A girl, human, wearing a moonstone mask in a place no human has walked for a century. Standing in the center of our masquerade, while the court fractures around her. His eyes locked onto hers. You. Leora's heart battered against her ribs. You're certain? Yes. Prophecies go badly in stories, she said hoarsely. People die trying to fulfill them. And you're asking me to walk willingly into yours? I am asking you to wear the mask, he said, and step through the door it opens. To stand in the moon court for 7 nights. To see whether your presence changes the curse's path as much as it does in my visions. He smiled, thin and not entirely reassuring. And I am offering you this. If you come, and if you stay for those 7 nights, I will give you enough resonance-infused coin and medicine to heal your brother's lungs and keep him safe for years. Liora stared at the mask in her hand. The carved stone seemed to grow heavier. 7 nights in a realm no human had seen in living memory. Among people who could bend moonlight and twist fate, under a curse that had chosen her, somehow, without her permission. She thought of Aaron, coughing in their narrow bed, of the apothecary's tired eyes, of the way the crowd at the harbor parted to let the lunar envoys pass, their silks brushing against the city's worn cobbles like a secret. Her shoulders tightened. How do I know you'll keep your word? His expression didn't change, but something in his posture did, a slight squaring of his spine. You do not know, he said. You will have to trust something, me, or your own judgment, or both. I am not asking you to be naive. You may bring your suspicion with you. How generous. He did not apologize. I will swear an oath in my own tongue, by our court's highest binding, he said. If I break it, my magic and my title will burn out like a quenched star. Does that sound sufficient? I don't know what that means, she said, though the quiet gravity in his voice made her believe he did not offer it lightly. It means I would be a fool to offer it lightly, he replied. Silence stretched between them again. Leora's palm tingled where the mask's filigree pressed into it. The room smelled faintly of some sharp, clear herb, not like Ina's dried leaves, but like night-blooming flowers she'd only ever seen on the governor's walls. "What's your name?" she asked finally. The faintest flicker of surprise crossed his face. "You care now?" "If I'm going to walk into a foreign realm with a stranger, I'd like to know what to call him," she said. Dangerous or not. His lips curved, this time with a trace of genuine humor. "Kaelen Ardyn," he said, "Prince of the Moon Court, cursed heir of a cracked throne. At your service, thief of Asterfen." "Liora," she said quietly, the word leaving her tongue before her caution could snatch it back. "Liora," she said quietly. His gaze sharpened, as if the shape of her name mattered. "Liora," he repeated, and in his accent the syllables sounded almost new. "Then, Liora Vale, will you wear the mask?" She looked at him, at the mask, at the door beyond his shoulder, which seemed suddenly very small and very far away. "This isn't how theft works," she said. "I'm supposed to take the thing and run." "Then consider this a more elaborate theft," he said. "You will be taking time from my court and forcing my curse to reveal itself. In exchange, I will allow my own fate to be stolen from the path it currently follows." A worthy heist, is it not? It was absurd, and yet, strangely, some part of her responded to the challenge in his tone. She thought of days ahead, counting coins that never quite added up, of Erin's breath growing shallower, his smiles more fragile, of staying small and safe inside the world she knew, while a door to something vast and terrifying stood open before her. 7 nights, she told herself, not forever. 7 nights for a chance to rewrite both of their lives. Her fingers loosened on the mask. She lifted it, the moonstone cool against her skin. "How do I do it?" she asked, her voice steady. "Stand here," Kaelen said, gesturing to the center of the room, where a circle of faintly glowing lines traced the floor, marks she hadn't noticed before. "Put it on when I say. The passage opens only when blood of my line stands with the one who wears the mask. That is why we fashioned it this way. We never intended a thief to be the first. Most people don't intend thieves at all," she said. "We arrive anyway." He inclined his head, as if conceding the point. She stepped into the circle. The air felt cooler there, denser, like water pressed into invisible walls. She held the mask in both hands and looked up at him. "If this kills me," she said, "I will haunt you." "I have had ghosts of one sort or another dogging my steps for years," he replied. "One more will hardly make a difference. Are you ready?" Leora's heart pounded. "No," she said honestly, "but do it anyway." His pale eyes caught the room's light, reflecting it like distant ice. "Very well," he said. He reached out and touched the mask, his fingertips brushing the carved edge near hers. A soft warmth surged through the stone, into her skin, up her arms. The shimmering lines on the floor brightened. "Now," Kaelen said quietly, "place it over your face, and do not let go, no matter what you see at first." She drew in a breath that tasted of lemon oil and night flowers and fear. Then she raised the mask and pressed it to her face. The stone was cold for one heartbeat. On the next, it softened, molding itself to her features, the filigree shifting like living silver. Light flared at the edges of her vision, bright, unbearable, then narrowed into a tunnel. The study vanished. She felt the floor drop away beneath her, and yet she did not fall. Instead, she moved without moving, pulled through a space that smelled of frost and starlight, where sound came in distant, ringing notes like struck crystal. Something brushed against her mind, a presence vast and patient. It tasted her fear and curiosity, turning them over like coins. Then her boots struck solid ground. The light receded, the world resolved. Liora lowered her hands. She stood beneath a sky that was not a sky at all, but a vast arched ceiling of pale stone, inlaid with tiny glowing shards that formed shifting constellations. Silver lanterns floated in the air, their chains trailing nothing. Music drifted around her, strange instruments, melodies that bent and looped like light on water. Crowds moved through the immense hall, all masked, all draped in fabrics that caught and shattered illumination. Some of the masks were simple, some elaborate, but all held that same faint, unnatural glow. "Moon Court," she thought, the words landing in her chest like a stone and a bird at once. Beside her, Kaelen Ardyn stood unchanged, save for the mask that now covered half his own face, a sleek design resembling a crescent moon, leaving his mouth and one pale eye visible. He looked at her, and in his uncovered eye she saw a reflection of herself. Her own mask still clung to her face, but here, from the inside, it no longer felt like stone. It felt like cool air and quiet knowing. It held her, not as a prison, but as a promise. "Welcome to the midnight masquerade of the Moon Court," Kaelen said, his voice a low thread in the sea of sound. "Your 7 nights begin now, Liora Vale." The music swelled. The masked crowd turned, subtly, as if feeling a shift in the room's center of gravity. Far above, one of the inlaid constellations flickered. A hairline crack of darkness spread from it, thin as a hair, almost invisible. Almost. Leora's breath caught. Kaelen's jaw tightened. The curse, she thought, had just felt her arrive. Moonlight shimmered in the vaulted ceiling of the great hall, and the masked dancers glided around Liora like silver-touched ghosts. She tried not to stare, but everything, every floating lantern, every drifting melody, felt too beautiful and too impossible to look away from. It should have been a dream. Instead, she felt sharply, profoundly awake. Kaelen stood at her shoulder, as if anchoring her to the ground. The mask on her face pulsed faintly, warming whenever she looked toward the crowd. She tried not to fidget with it. They did not have long to stand alone. A pair of moon nobles approached, their movements elegant and sure. Their masks were shaped like crescent wings that rose from their temples. "Prince Kaelen," the taller one said, bowing with a fluid grace that made Liora suddenly aware of her stiff posture. "Your return is welcome." "Lord Valen," Kaelen said with a polite nod, "Lady Ariste." Their gazes slid to Liora, curious and cold. "A human guest?" Lady Ariste asked. "How unexpected." Kaelen's reply was even, controlled. "She stands under my protection." Valen's tone remained polite, but a faint note of warning threaded beneath it. "Protection is a heavy promise, Prince, and tonight of all nights." "I am aware," Kaelen said.
Something unspoken passed between them, an entire conversation Liora didn't understand, built of tension and tradition and centuries of subtle courtship between power and fear. Ariste's gaze sharpened. The Masquerade's magic is strained as it is. The court feels fragile. Her eyes flicked toward the nearly invisible crack in the ceiling. "To introduce an unknown variable is my choice," Kaelen said calmly. Valen bowed again, though his eyes lingered on Liora. "May fortune guide you tonight, Prince, and you, mortal." He and Ariste glided away, leaving a trace of cold fragrance in the air. Liora exhaled slowly. "They don't like me." "They don't like anything they can't predict," Kaelen murmured. "And you, Liora Vale, are very difficult to predict." She wasn't sure she liked the way he said that. "You said I'd be here 7 nights. Are all nights like this?" Kaelen's gaze lifted to the ceiling. "Tonight, the Masquerade renews the court's resonance, or it should, but the curse distorts the flow. What you saw earlier," he gestured subtly toward the crack, "is new and dangerous." Liora swallowed. "So people already think I'm causing trouble?" "Not trouble," Kaelen said. "Change." She wasn't sure that sounded better. A sudden wave of music thrummed through the hall. The dancers began to shift and weave into new patterns, every movement perfectly synchronized, like moonlit schools of fish. Liora stared in helpless awe. "Do they rehearse this?" she whispered. "No," Kaelen said. "The Masquerade guides them. The court attunes to the magic. It shapes the dance. And what if you don't want to dance? Then the Masquerade will compel you more gently." He gave a faint, wry tilt of his head. "Though mortals are less susceptible." "Good," Liora muttered, "because I'm not dancing." Kaelen turned to her. "You don't have to," he said softly. His voice held something gentle, steady, that brushed against her ribcage like an unexpected warmth. She looked away quickly. Before she could gather herself, another presence approached. This one felt different, lighter, quieter. A woman in flowing silver robes, her mask a delicate pattern of interwoven circles like rippling water. "Prince Kaelen," she said, bowing, "and this must be the one from your vision." Kaelen's expression softened. "Serith." "Ah, the court seer." Serith's gaze settled on Liora, not in suspicion, but in careful, thoughtful study. "Your presence is interesting." "I've heard that word a lot tonight," Liora said dryly. Serith gave a smile slightly. "I imagine you have. The resonance around you is unusual. Dead spots where there should be flow. Flow where there should be stillness. That sounds bad." "Not bad," Serith said. "Different. Not better," Liora muttered. "Different shapes fate. That alone makes the court uneasy." Sereth kiffed her head. "Tell me, child, how much of the curse did Kaelen explain?" "Very little," Liora said. "Just that he has visions and they're getting worse." Sereth's eyes softened. "His visions are not like stories. They are glimpses of maybes, twisted by the curse's hunger. It shows him truths and lies in the same breath. It wears his strength thin. Some nights it nearly takes him." Liora looked at Kaelen. He'd spoken of the curse plainly, but never with any sign of vulnerability. Yet now she noticed the faint tension around his eye, the steady way he held himself, as if propping up an invisible weight. "How long has this been happening?" she asked quietly. "Since he was 14, Sereth said. Liora's breath caught. That young. "The curse follows the blood," Sereth said. "It struck his mother first. She faded slowly, until the visions consumed her. When Kaelen came of age, it passed to him." Liora's throat tightened. She had known something was wrong, could see it in the cracks forming in the court, in the way Kaelen watched the world like a battlefield. But hearing the truth made it far too real. "Why me?" she whispered. "That," Sereth said gently, "is the question that terrifies everyone here, because the answer is unclear." She touched Liora's shoulder lightly. "Be careful, not of us, but of what the court might become if the curse deepens." Sereth drifted away like a fading note. Liora and Kaelen stood alone again. Before Liora could speak, a sharp, metallic chime rang out. The music faltered. Lanterns dimmed. A hush rippled over the ballroom. Kaelen's jaw tightened. "It begins." The crowd parted as another figure strode toward them, tall, with angular shoulders and a mask shaped like a blade of moonlight. His coat shimmered like frost. "Varos," Kaelen murmured. This must be the courtier who doubted her presence. Varos bowed stiffly. "Prince Kaelen, might we speak?" "Now is not the time." "Now is precisely the time." Varos's gaze snapped to Liora. "You brought a mortal into the masquerade, into a ritual woven for Fae alone. Look around you." Liora followed his gaze. The crack in the ceiling had widened, only slightly, but unmistakably. Kaelen's expression remained calm, but a faint tension coiled through him. The curse was already worsening. "Not like this," Varos said sharply. "Her presence agitates it. You do not know that. I know she is the only new variable." Varos turned fully to Liora, his eyes narrowing behind the blade-like mask. "Why did you come here, mortal?" Liora swallowed and forced her spine straight. "I didn't ask to be part of your prophecy. I came because I need help." "For a price," Varos said coldly. "Mortals always want something." "And Fae don't?" she snapped. Varos's silence was sharp enough to cut. Kaelen stepped quietly between them. "Enough. Liora is here because the visions led her here, not because she wishes to harm us." Varos's jaw tightened. "Visions are smoke, Kaelen, and you are breathing too deeply." "With respect," Liora said, before she could stop herself, "arguing about me isn't helping your curse problem." Varos stared at her, incredulous. "You think you understand our curse?" "No," she said, "but I do understand problems that get worse when everyone is too afraid to act." A long silence followed. Unexpectedly, Varos laughed, short, cold, but not mocking. "She has spine, I'll grant her that." Kaelen's lips twitched in the barest flicker of amusement. Another ripple moved through the hall. The music dimmed further. A faint tremor passed underfoot. The masquerade was unraveling. Varos sobered. "If she must remain, then keep her close. The court is stirring. The curse is watching." He strode away before either of them could answer. Kaelen turned to Liora, the faintest apology in his gaze. "You handled that well. I insulted one of your nobles? Yes, Kaelen said, surprisingly effectively. Liora huffed out a thin, shaky breath. She looked up at the widening crack, at the drifting lanterns dimming one by one. What do we do now? She asked. We observe, Kaelen said. We see how the court reacts to your presence. The curse will respond, one way or another. That sounds dangerously vague. It is, he paused, but you will not face it alone. The words brushed against her chest like a steadying hand. She hated how much she needed the reassurance. The ground gave the faintest tremble again. Kaelen's eyes darkened. We should leave the hall, he said. The resonance here is too strong. If the curse lashes out, it will happen where resonance is deepest. And where is resonance weakest? She asked. The north wing, he said. My private chambers. The curse avoids them. It always has. Why? He hesitated, then said, because that is where it took my mother. Liora's breath hitched, but Kaelen had already turned his gaze away. For a moment, the mask's pale edges threw strange shadows across his cheek, revealing just how young he looked when grief caught him unguarded. She nodded once. All right, show me. They left the great hall through a side archway, stepping into a quieter passage of moon-pale stone. The music dimmed behind them, replaced by a faint thrumming, like a heartbeat buried in the walls. Is the court alive? Liora asked. In a sense, Kaelen said. Resonance moves like blood. When the curse twists it, the court feels pain. They walked in silence for a few breaths. Corridors branched off in elegant arcs, lit by floating crystals shaped like teardrops. Their light wavered slightly as Liora passed beneath them. Kaelen noticed. The court can sense you. That's comforting. It isn't meant to be alarming, he said. You are unfamiliar, and unfamiliar things change the flow. That still sounds alarming. For the court, yes, not for you. Her footsteps sounded too loud in the quiet hall. As they walked, Kaelen's gait slowed slightly, his hand brushing the wall now and then as if steadying himself. Liora frowned. Are you all right? Yes, he said. Kaelen. He hesitated, then sighed softly. The visions tug at me more here. They sense you. They are trying to adjust. Adjust how? That, he said, is what frightens me. Liora stepped closer, close enough that her shoulder nearly brushed his. What do you see? He drew a slow breath. Flashes, shadows, a mask falling, moonlight breaking, your hand reaching for mine, and then he shook his head. It is like trying to remember a dream that changes as you recall it. Liora's voice softened. I didn't realize it hurt you this much. It always has, Kaelen said quietly, but it is easier when someone stands beside me. She didn't know what to say. She wasn't the comforting type, yet something in the way he said it, plain, unadorned, made her want to try. So, I'll stand beside you, she said, not for prophecy, but because you asked me to. His steps faltered. He looked at her not like a prince evaluating a risk, but like a man seeing an unexpected door open inside his own chest. Thank you, Kaelen said. Her cheeks warmed. They walked a bit further, when a sharp sound cracked through the corridor, like ice splitting. Kaelen stiffened. The curse is shifting. A cold wind brushed Liora's hair, though the air hadn't moved. Shadows curled along the far end of the hall. Kaelen caught her wrist. Stay behind me. A pulse of blackened moonlight tore across the floor, jagged and wrong. It skittered like a living crack, snaking toward them. Liora's breath seized. What is that? A fracture, Kaelen said tightly. A small one, but dangerous. He raised his free hand, moonlight pooling in his palm like liquid silver. He thrust it toward the oncoming fracture. The spell met the shadow with a piercing hiss. Liora felt the impact vibrate through the stone. The fracture recoiled, then split into two smaller tendrils heading for the walls. Kaelen's knees buckled. Liora grabbed his arm before he hit the floor. Kaelen! He let out a thin breath, pupils dilated. The curse fights me harder when you're near. That's terrible, she said.
It is also proof you matter, Kaelen said through his teeth. That doesn't make me feel better. He gave a faint, pained huff of laughter. It was not meant to. The shadow tendrils dissipated, like smoke curling into cracks. The corridor fell still again. Kaelen leaned against the wall, breath shallow. Liora kept a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. "Are you going to be able to walk?" "Yes," he said. "Just give me—" Another tremor rippled the floor. This one wasn't from the curse. It felt normal, physical. Footsteps. Varos emerged from around the corner, silver cloak flicking dramatically behind him. His mask gleamed like cut glass. I felt a flare. He stopped short at the sight of Kaelen's posture, and Leora's hand gripping his arm. "Curse take it, Kaelen. You should not be wandering the halls during a resonance event." "And you should not be stalking me," Kaelen shot back, though his voice lacked its usual precision. Varos rolled his eyes. "Stalking is your word. Truthfully, I was merely prepared for trouble, and here it is." He looked at Liora pointedly. Liora bristled. "He asked me to come with him." "A foolish decision," Varos said, "even for him." Kaelen straightened, though his breath still hitched. "Enough. We are going to my chambers." Varos's jaw worked. "Then I'm coming with you." "No," Kaelen said. Varos crossed his arms. "If the curse lashes out like that again, and you collapse fully, she won't know how to help you." "I will teach her," Kaelen said tightly. They stared each other down. Liora surprised them both by stepping between them. "Enough," she said sharply. "Fighting isn't helping either of you. Let's get Kaelen somewhere safe and argue later." Varos blinked. Kaelen looked faintly amused. Then, unexpectedly, Varos nodded. "Fine. But if he dies, I'm blaming you." "He's not dying," Liora said. "Not if I have anything to say about it." They continued down the corridor. Varos stayed behind them, silent but alert. Soon they reached a tall, arched doorway. Kaelen pushed it open. The chamber inside was quiet, soft with pools of moonlight. The walls were hung with pale drapes and shelves of crystals that glowed gently. It felt warmer than the rest of the court, as though someone lived here instead of merely passing through. Kaelen sank onto a low couch, rubbing his forehead. Varos stood with arms folded. "You need rest." "I need answers," Kaelen murmured. "And you expect to find them by dragging a mortal through active resonance?" Liora bristled again. "I'm still in the room, you know." "Yes," Varos said, "unfortunately." Kaelen lifted a hand. "Both of you, enough." The room stilled. After a long moment, Varos sighed. "I will send Sarith. She will stabilize the resonance here, if she can." He glanced once more at Liora, less hostile, more wary, and then strode out. Silence followed. Liora sat beside Kaelen, leaving a careful gap between them. "Does it always hurt like that?" she asked quietly. "Sometimes worse," he said. "Sometimes better. The curse is unpredictable, but never, never as sharply as when you are near." She winced. "You're making me feel like poison." "No," his gaze softened. "You are contrast. The curse is trying to adjust to you, and failing." "That sounds even worse than poison." "It is only dangerous," Kaelen said, "if we let it be." Liora let out a shaky breath. "This is more than I expected." "You expected to steal a mask," Kaelen said, "not stand in a prince's chamber talking about prophecy." "Exactly." She looked around at the soft light, the quiet comfort of the drapes, the way Kaelen's breathing had steadied when he stepped inside. "This place feels different," she said. "Safer." Kaelen nodded. "The curse avoids this chamber. It fears what it did here." Liora hesitated. "Your mother?"
He closed his eyes briefly. She spent her final months here. The curse grew strong enough to twist her visions into constant torment. When she died, the chamber held her last breath. He touched the drape beside him. Resonance still remembers her. It repels the curse when it creeps near. Leora's heart tightened. This realm felt cold and strange, but grief was familiar in every world. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Kaelen looked at her, really looked, and something in him eased. "Thank you." Their eyes held for a breath too long. Then he looked away, his voice quieter. "You held your ground tonight, even when Varos confronted you. I'm used to people underestimating me." "I am not," Kaelen said. "Underestimating you, that is." Heat rose in her cheeks. She hoped the mask hid it. Before she could form a response, a soft knock sounded at the door. "It's Sereth," came her calm voice. Kaelen gestured for her to enter. The seer stepped inside, her presence like gentle wind. Her eyes flicked over Kaelen, then Liora, then the faint shimmer of the room. "You stabilized the fracture?" she asked Kaelen. "For now," he said. Sereth nodded, then turned to Liora. "Your presence is altering the curse's pressure. Not breaking it, not worsening it, simply shifting its pattern." "Is that good?" Liora asked. "It is new," Sereth said, "and new things can become anything." Liora groaned. "Does everyone here speak in riddles?" "Yes," Sereth said serenely. "It is part of our charm." Kaelen let out a tired laugh. Sereth nodded to him. "Rest. The resonance will settle around you both if you remain in this room." Kaelen reluctantly leaned back against the cushions, exhaustion pulling at his features. Sereth turned to Liora. "Sit close. Your presence steadies him." Liora blinked.
"I do what now?" "Your non-resonant aura disrupts the curse's rhythm," Sereth said. "It is grounding. Sit near him." Liora moved closer, awkwardly at first, then settled beside Kaelen as he shifted to give her space. His shoulder brushed hers lightly. Kaelen let out a long exhale, tension easing visibly. "Better?" Sereth asked. "Yes," he murmured. "Much." The seer nodded once more. "Good. Tonight has told us something important. The curse reacts to Liora strongly, but not always violently. There may be a way to use that." "A way to break it?" Liora asked. "Possibly," Sereth said, "but not quickly, and not without risk." Kaelen's voice was soft. "I care little for risk." "I do," Liora said sharply. Kaelen looked at her, expression softened by fatigue. "You shouldn't." "Well, I do," she said. "You dragged me here with a prophecy and a curse. I'd like to survive the week." His lips curved in a faint, tired smile. "So would I." Sereth folded her hands. "Then we proceed carefully. Tomorrow we will begin testing how the curse responds to Liora under controlled conditions." "That sounds ominous," Liora muttered. "It probably is," Sereth said cheerfully. "Sleep now, both of you." She glided out, closing the door softly. Kaelen lay back against the cushions, eyes half-lidded. "You should rest, Liora. That wasn't part of the deal." "It is now," he said. "You cannot help me break a curse if you collapse." "Fair point." She leaned back, letting her head rest on the soft cushion. The room felt strangely warm, the crystals casting gentle light across the walls. Her limbs felt heavy with exhaustion, but her mind hummed with everything that had happened. Kaelen's voice came softly. "Thank you for earlier." "For what?" "For standing with me." A pause. "Most people fear me when the curse flares." "I was scared too," she admitted, "but not of you." "That," he said quietly, "is new." Liora turned her head slightly. Their faces were close, closer than she'd realized. "Get some sleep, Kaelen," she said, her voice softer than intended. He exhaled, a sound between relief and surrender. "Good night, Liora." Her eyes drifted shut as the resonance in the room hummed gently around them,
cradling and quieting. Despite the strangeness of the realm, despite the fear curling low in her stomach, she felt safe, safer than she had felt in a very long time. Tomorrow would bring more danger, more questions, more cracks in the court's brittle facade. But tonight, in the quiet warmth of Kaelen's chambers, with the curse's grip loosened and the world briefly still, Liora allowed herself to rest. And somewhere, deep in the moon court, the crack in the ceiling widened one fraction more. Liora dreamed of water and light.
She stood on the surface of a still, silver lake. The stars reflected so perfectly beneath her feet that she could not tell where sky ended and reflection began. When she looked down, she saw not her own face, but the smooth, unreadable mask she wore in the moon court. Its eye-holes were empty, and yet she felt something watching through them. A faint crack rippled through the reflected sky below. It spread in jagged lines, turning constellations into fractured glass. "Careful," a voice said, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You stand where paths cross. One wrong step, and everything falls through." She spun, searching for Kaelen, for Cirith, for anyone. The lake stretched endlessly around her. "Who's there?" she demanded. The answer came as a whisper of cold air against her ear. "You know me. You've carried me in your pocket. You pressed me to your face. I am the door you opened." The mask, she thought. The lake trembled beneath her. With sudden clarity, she realized that the crack beneath her feet mirrored the one in the ballroom ceiling. "Can I fix you?" she asked, horrified by the thinness of her own voice. "That depends," the whisper said, "on whether you will break something else." Before she could ask what, the lake shattered. She jolted awake. Moonlight, not the harsh, glass-bright light of the great hall, but a softer glow, washed over the chamber. For a disorienting moment, she did not know where she was. Then she felt warmth against her shoulder. Kaelen sat beside her on the couch, his head tilted back against the cushions, eyes closed. Sometime while she slept, he had slipped off his mask. His face in this gentle light looked less like a prince carved from moonstone, and more like a young man exhausted beyond his years. Soft shadows traced his jaw. A faint crease cut between his brows, even in sleep. Their shoulders touched, barely, just enough that she could feel the steady rise and fall of his breath. Liora stayed very still, listening. His breathing had a rhythm she was beginning to recognize, slower now, less strained. The curse, for the moment, was resting. She eased away from him, reluctant but careful not to wake him. The cushion dipped and shifted under her weight, but Kaelen did not stir, only exhaled softly. She studied his face. He had told her about his mother in simple words. No self-pity, no embellishment, just fact, delivered with the quietness of someone who had spent too long being told that his pain was secondary to his duty. She thought of Aaron, pale in their narrow bed, of how she would do anything, reckless or desperate, to keep him breathing. No wonder Kaelen had dragged a stranger across the veil. When you were drowning, you didn't always ask where the outstretched hand had come from. "I'm not letting this curse have you either," she muttered under her breath. "What a comfort," came a dry voice near the doorway. She turned sharply. Varos leaned against the doorframe, his blade-shaped mask tucked under one arm. Without it, his features were angular, finely drawn. His eyes glinted like steel in moonlight. "How long have you been standing there?" she demanded. "Long enough to be reassured that your idea of pillow talk is swearing at curses," he said, "not seducing princes." Heat flooded her cheeks. "That's not... We weren't..." "I know," he said. "If you were trying to seduce him, there would be more fluttering." He made a vague gesture with one hand. "I don't flutter," Liora said, offended. "I've noticed." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The room's resonance hummed faintly, adjusting to the new presence. "Why are you here?" she asked warily. "Aside from spying. I came to see whether our prince is dead, mad, or still stubbornly alive," Varos said. "I see the answer is alive. Unfortunately for some, reassuring for others." Liora frowned. "You care about him." Varos's mouth twisted. "He is my prince, and my friend, though he abuses the privilege by making reckless bargains with mortal thieves." "Thief," she corrected automatically. "Singular." "I assure you I am aware there is only one of you," Varos said. "If there were more, the court would have collapsed already." He crossed to the couch, studying Kaelen's sleeping face. Something like worry flickered in his gaze, then vanished so quickly Liora might have imagined it. "The curse has gentled around him," Varos said quietly. "Sereth was right. You steady it." "Glad my presence is good for something," Liora muttered. Varos's gaze snapped to her. "Do not pretend what you are doing is small. You have stepped into a war that has lasted generations. Most would have run." "You don't know what I've run from," she said. "No," he agreed. "I only know what you ran toward, which, arguably, is worse." Before she could answer, Kaelen stirred. His eyes opened slowly, pupils adjusting to the moonlit room. "Varos," he said, "you're looming." "Someone must," Varos replied. "You lack the energy to loom properly at the moment." Kaelen pushed himself upright, wincing slightly. Liora instinctively shifted closer, ready to steady him if needed. He caught the movement, his gaze flicking to her briefly, gratitude unspoken but present. "How long was I asleep?" he asked. "A few hours," Liora said. "Enough to snore." "I do not snore," Kaelen protested. "You made a sound that was either snoring or the curse trying to sing," she said. "Neither is flattering." His lips quirked. The expression made him look younger. "We have a problem," Varos said, cutting through the moment. "Several, in fact, but one more pressing than the others." "Of course we do," murmured.
"It would be unnerving if we did not." Varos ignored that. "The fracture in the ballroom grew while you slept. Sereth and the resonance wardens contained it for now, but it is stubborn, and it appears to be focused on the spot where Liora arrived." Liora stiffened. "So it is my fault?" "No," Varos snapped. "Do not put words in my mouth. It is not your fault. It is your presence." "That's not exactly better." "It means the curse is responding," Kaelen said, more alert now, "which is what we expected." "Is it?" Liora shot back. "Because what I expected was to steal a mask, sell it, and buy medicine, not become some kind of curse magnet." "You are not a magnet," Kaelen said calmly. "You are a disturbance in the curse's pattern. It does not know what to make of you." "That makes two of us," she muttered. Varos rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Sereth wants to begin structured tests today. She believes exposing the curse to Liora in controlled ways may reveal its bindings, or provoke a backlash that tears someone apart. Her words, not mine." "Reassuring," Liora said weakly. Kaelen swung his feet to the floor, gathering himself. His exhaustion had not vanished, but there was a new steadiness in his gaze. "Where?" he asked. "The resonance hall," Varos said. "She is preparing it now." "Then we go," Kaelen said. He rose carefully. Liora stood with him, muscles tensed. For a moment they were close enough that she could see the faint silver ring around his irises, like frozen moonlight. "You don't have to come," he said quietly, "just for her." She blinked. "I thought that was the whole point, me being here." "It is," he said, "but you are not bound by our rituals. If at any point this becomes too much, you may walk away." "And leave you to face this curse alone? I've done it for years." "Well, it hasn't worked," she said bluntly. "So stop offering me exits and start telling me what I need to do." His lips parted, then curved slowly into a real, helpless smile. It transformed his face like the first crack of light over a horizon.
As you wish, he said. Varos groaned quietly. I should have known you'd like her. I don't like, Kaelen began. Liora cut in quickly, cheeks burning. Can we save the arguing about who likes whom until after we stop your realm from cracking apart? Varos spread his hands. Very well. Crisis first. Feelings later. There will be no feelings, muttered, striding toward the door. Liora followed, her heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with curses. The resonance hall stood at the heart of the moon court. Liora had expected something grand like the ballroom, all sweeping arches and glittering light. Instead, the hall was surprisingly simple. A circular chamber, its walls bare. The ceiling was a single smooth curve of pale stone, unmarked by cracks or decoration. The floor was carved with concentric rings, each filled with shifting patterns of light. Sereth stood at the center, hands folded. Several other fae lingered near the walls, wardens, judging by their plain dark clothing and the crystal rods they held. Their masks were simple crescents. As Liora stepped inside, the air changed. The resonance here was stronger, denser, like stepping into deeper water. Sereth turned, studying them. Good, you both came, and you brought Varos. I dragged him, Varos said. I invited myself, he added a heartbeat later, bristling. Sereth's lips twitched. As you always do. Stand there, please. She gestured to a circle, etched in the floor near the center. Kaelen moved to it without hesitation. Liora's stomach clenched as she realized there was a second circle beside his. Of course, she muttered. 2 circles. How convenient. The curse reacts most strongly when you are close, Sereth said. We will test various distances and alignments. That sounds almost scientific, Liora said weakly. It is, Sereth said. Our science simply involves more glowing symbols. Varos leaned against a pillar, arms crossed. If anything looks like it's going to explode, I'm pulling them out. That would defeat the purpose, Sereth said. Yes, Varos replied, and yet. Liora stepped into her circle. The lines beneath her feet brightened, adjusting to her weight. The air felt cooler here, humming against her skin. Kaelen glanced at her, eyes questioning. Ready? He asked. No, she said, then added, Go on. Sereth lifted her hands. The rings etched into the floor began to glow in sequence, like ripples spreading outward. This hall amplifies resonance, she said. Normally, we use it to train young fae in control. Today, we will instead coax the curse into revealing its structure. How? Liora asked. By irritating it, Sereth said. Oh, good, Liora said. We're poking it with a stick. A very precisely calibrated stick, Sereth said. The wardens around the room moved into position. The crystals at the tips of their rods brightened, casting long shadows. Sereth's voice dropped. First test. Passive alignment. Kaelen, draw a small amount of resonance. Liora, simply stand where you are. Kaelen closed his eyes. Light gathered around his hands, soft and pale. Liora felt it like a breeze across her skin. At first, nothing happened. Then the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Frost formed along the lines at the floor's edge, creeping inward. A faint crackling sound filled the air. Liora's breath clouded in front of her mask. Hold, Sereth said calmly. The light around Kaelen flickered. His jaw tightened. The frost thickened, then abruptly diverted, sweeping around the outer ring and avoiding the circles where he and Liora stood. Sereth's eyes narrowed. Interesting. That's one word for it, Liora shivered. The curse resents the amplification, Sereth murmured, but it does not want to touch her, not directly. Kaelen's breathing had grown labored. Liora's fingers clenched at her sides. Enough, she said. Can you stop? Not yet, Sereth said. Second test. Kaelen, increase the draw slightly. Liora, reach out and touch his hand. What? Liora blurted.
The curse intensifies when you make contact, Sereth said. We must see how. That seems like a terrible idea, Varus snapped. It is necessary, Sereth replied. Kaelen's extended hand trembled slightly, strands of white light dancing between his fingers. Liora swallowed. Liora, he said quietly, you don't have to. She stepped forward, crossing the small gap between their circles. Her fingers closed around his. The impact hit like a physical force. Darkness surged at the edges of the room, slamming toward the center. The lights in the warden's crystals flared. The frost reversed direction, racing for them. Kaelen's hand tightened around hers, hard enough to hurt. His back arched slightly, eyes clamped shut. A low sound escaped his throat. Sereth, Varus barked. Hold, Sereth said, voice sharp. Look. Liora forced her eyes open. The darkness that had rushed toward them now swirled around the inner rings, spinning in tight, frantic patterns. It looked less like a wave and more like a trap undone, cords whipping wildly as their anchor shifted. It avoided the exact point where her hand joined Kaelen's. The curse cannot latch on to both of you at once, Sereth said, her tone tinged with awe. It must choose. Liora felt something pressing against her chest, like invisible fingers testing the strength of her ribs. For a heartbeat, panic threatened to swallow her. Kaelen's fingers flexed, a tiny squeeze of reassurance. She clung to that. What is it? She ground out. Right now, Sereth said. Confusion. The darkness writhed, then shot upward, slamming harmlessly against the smooth, bare ceiling. No cracks appeared there. The hall's stone drank in the impact like water. The wardens moved in practiced unison, channeling lines of light toward the ceiling. The darkness shuddered, then dissolved into fine, glittering dust that drifted down harmlessly. Kaelen sagged. Liora tightened her grip to keep him upright. Enough, Sereth said. Release the resonance. Kaelen let out his breath slowly. The light around his hands faded. The cold in the room softened. The humming resonance steadied. Liora let go of his hand, her own fingers tingling. Her heart hammered so hard it hurt.
Well, Varus said after a moment, that was horrifying. It was informative, Sereth corrected. Look, she gestured upward. The ceiling was still smooth, unmarked. In the ballroom, the curse's aggression manifests as fractures, Sereth said. Here, in the hall, with Liora as counterpoint, it cannot find purchase. It thrashes instead of breaking. How is that better? Liora asked. It means, Sereth said, that the curse is bound to pattern. It cannot simply devour indiscriminately. It must follow lines. You disrupt those lines. You keep saying that like I should know what it means, Liora muttered. It means you are the first variable the curse has not accounted for, Sereth said. Something outside its original terms. Original terms? Kaelen repeated, straightening with effort. You speak like it's a contract. Sereth's eyes gleamed. Isn't it? Varus frowned. The old pact. Liora looked between them. What pact? Silence fell, heavy and uncomfortable. Kaelen's expression tightened. Our history with your kind is complicated. That's the word people use when they don't want to admit they did something terrible, Liora said. Ha, he said. Long ago, he said, before the veil sealed, the Moon Court forged a pact with certain human bloodlines. The resonance between our realms was unstable. The pact used human anchors to steady it. Liora's stomach churned. Anchors? People whose lives were bound to the balance between worlds, Sereth said quietly. When they prospered, resonance flowed smoothly. When they suffered, the flow faltered. That's monstrous, Liora whispered. It was mutual, Sereth said. They received blessings in return. Prosperity, protection, guidance. And what did the Moon Court receive? Liora asked. Sereth raised her chin. Stability and warning.
The anchor's dreams reflected shifts between our worlds. They saw dangers before they came. Like Kaelen's visions, Liora said softly. Mine are something else, a corruption of that system. What happened to the pact? She asked. Varos's gaze hardened. We broke it. Liora's fingers curled into fists. Why? The mortal anchors grew restless, Sereth said. They wanted to walk our halls, wield our magic directly, claim more than the pact offered. Some among our court feared what that would do to resonance. Others hungered for more power themselves. Arguments turned to threats, threats to violence. A decision was made to sever the pact entirely and seal the veil. And the humans? Liora asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Abandoned, Kaelen said, left without the blessings they had been promised. Their lives suddenly ordinary.
Or worse, cursed by absence. By absence, Sereth repeated. Resonance once given and then yanked away leaves a wound. Liora's throat felt tight. So this curse of yours is not yours alone, Varos said quietly. It runs through our bloodline. But its roots, he met her gaze, may reach all the way back to the humans we betrayed. Liora's heart pounded. A strange, cold fear slithered through her. My family has never had blessings, she said. We've had sickness, debt, bad harvests, even when everyone else in the street had enough. My mother used to say our luck turned the day her grandmother went to the cliffs and never came back. Kaelen's eyes darkened. The cliffs along the vale. I don't know, Liora said. I thought it was just a story. A lesson about not going near dangerous ledges. She gave a short, humorous laugh. Now I'm wondering if someone in my line made a deal with your court and got left holding all the broken pieces? Sereth's gaze sharpened, seeing patterns where Liora only saw scattered shards. Your name, she said slowly. Vale. It was once Valen in the old tongue. I have seen records. Varos swore under his breath. Of course, the Valen line was one of the anchors. They were at the center of the final argument. Liora felt lightheaded. So, you mean I'm descended from people you tied to your magic like weights, then cut loose? Sereth didn't flinch. We bound ourselves as well, she said quietly. A pact is never one-sided, but we had the stronger hand when we severed it. Our realm twisted, yes, but we retained power. The mortal anchors had nothing. Kaelen's voice was a low thread. The curse began then. Slowly at first. My grandfather's visions were rare, his pain intermittent. With each generation it worsened. Each time we ignored an echo from the other side, it grew sharper, until it reached me. And me, Liora said, numb, on the other side. The room felt too small, the air too thin. She was a thief, a sister, a girl from Astaphan's alleys, not the descendant of some broken magical contract. You think my presence here is the pact trying to fix itself? We think, said, that the curse is the pact's broken echo, trying to pull the worlds back into balance without understanding how. It lashes at you because you are its missing piece and its wound at once. That's poetic, Liora ground out. Unfortunately, poetic explanations don't save anyone. No, Kaelen said. He stepped out of his circle, the etched lines dimming underfoot. But they show us where to start cutting. He looked at Sereth. If the curse and the pact are intertwined, then breaking one without addressing the other will only worsen both. Sereth nodded slowly. We cannot simply burn the threads. We must reweave them. Liora's stomach tightened. What does that mean for me? Sereth met her gaze. It means you may need to stand where your ancestors once stood, to choose willingly where they were coerced. No, Varos said sharply. Absolutely not. You cannot ask a mortal girl to bind herself to our realm just to patch an old wound.
I am not suggesting we repeat the pact as it was, Sereth said. We can reshape its terms, make it equitable, voluntary. As equitable as binding someone's life to your magic can be, Varos said. Liora raised her hands. Do I get a say in this, or are you all going to argue about which way to chain me first? They fell silent. Yes, Kaelen said at once. You get the only say that matters. Sereth inclined her head. She is correct. We cannot decide this for her. Varos's jaw clenched. She doesn't understand the consequences. Then we explain them, Liora snapped, carefully, in order. A faint, reluctant respect flickered in Varos's eyes. Very well, mortal. Let us see if your Astraphan's stubbornness can withstand centuries of bad decisions. Sereth's tone gentled. If you accept a bond, it will anchor resonance between our realms again, but differently. Instead of your entire bloodline sharing the burden unknowingly, you would hold a deliberate link. That link would give you certain protections, certain abilities, and certain vulnerabilities. Meaning, Liora pressed. Meaning, Sereth said, that if our realm shatters, the backlash would strike you as well. If your world suffers a great wound, the echo could reach us through you. You would become a hinge. Liora exhaled slowly. And if I refuse? The curse continues as it is, Sereth said, perhaps worsens. It has tried to fix itself for generations without success. Kaelen's visions will grow more violent. The fractures in the court will spread. Your realm may see its own consequences in ways we can no longer predict. And my family? Liora asked, her voice low. Sereth's shoulders softened. They will remain as they are, injured but not bound. The old echo will keep tugging at them, but more diffusely. You might still be able to help your brother with the reward Kaelen promised. The rest would be left to chance. Choice. It sounded like a gift. It felt like a weight. I need time, Liora said. You will have it, Kaelen said immediately. We will not push you into any bond. We brought you here to change the curse's path, not to repeat old wrongs. Varos watched him closely. And if breaking the curse depends on her binding herself? Then we find another way, Kaelen said. There may not be another, Sereth warned. Then the curse kills me, Kaelen said simply. And the court finds a different heir, or none at all. I will not survive by shackling her. Liora stared at him. His words were matter-of-fact, but the quiet conviction in them made her chest ache. You stubborn idiot, she whispered. His lips curved faintly. That is the standard assessment. Varos snorted. Sereth let out a slow breath. In any case, we have learned what we needed from this session. The curse cannot anchor to both of you at once. Leora's presence diverts it from its usual fracturing pattern, and the old pact's ghost is more tangled in all of this than we realized. I feel like I'm made of knots, Liora muttered. Kaelen stepped closer, hesitating just a fraction before resting his hand lightly on her shoulder. The touch was gentle, careful, as if he were afraid she might break. You are not a knot, he said. You are a knife. We simply have to show you where to cut. She huffed out a startled laugh. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Your city must be stranger than ours, Varos muttered. The tests ended. Sereth dismissed the wardens, who left in a rustle of dark fabric and fading light. Only the four of them remained in the hall as the resonance settled back to a quiet hum. The room suddenly felt too big. We should return to my chambers, Kaelen said. The curse will be quieter there. And we should all eat, Liora added, or whatever counts as eating in this place. I need something solid in my stomach that isn't sheer panic. Varos brightened slightly. At last, sensible words. The Moon Court's kitchens were nothing like Astraphan's smoky market stalls. They were carved into a curve of the palace, with high ceilings and shelves stacked with ingredients that glowed faintly. Fey cooks moved with precise grace, stirring pots whose contents shimmered like liquid light. Liora stared as a bowl was set before her. The soup inside looked like moonlight given liquid form. "Is it going to turn me into a bird?" she asked warily. "No," Kaelen said, amused. "It's restorative. Lunar broth with star lily and cloud root. It will calm your nerves." She eyed it. "Will it taste like boiled swamp?" He looked briefly confused. "No?" "Good," she said, and took a cautious sip. It tasted surprisingly gentle, warm with a faint sweetness, and something clean underneath, like breathing cool air after rain. The knot in her stomach loosened. Kaelen ate his own portion more slowly, fatigue still etched in the set of his shoulders. Varos joined them, despite loudly proclaiming that he didn't need calming. Sereth declined, saying she had too much thinking to do to waste time with chewing, and drifted off to her tower. For a few minutes they ate in relative quiet. "This is the strangest week of my life," Liora said at last. "Mine too," Kaelen said. She raised a brow. "You grew up in a castle that bleeds moonlight and have visions of the future, but I'm the strange part?" "Yes," he said simply. Her spoon froze halfway to her mouth. "You really don't know how to flatter someone, do you?" "I was not trying to flatter you," he said. "Prince Ardyn," Varos sighed, "if you ever decide to court someone, I beg of you, let someone else handle the words." Liora nearly choked on her broth. Kaelen's ears turned faintly pink. "We are not discussing this now." "We're barely discussing anything else," Varos pointed out. "Your visions, her presence, the way the curse throws a fit whenever you look at each other for too long." "Varos," Kaelen said sharply. Varos held up both hands. "Very well, I'll save my observations for Sereth. She finds my misery entertaining." Liora put down her spoon, watching them. For all his sharp words, Varos's barbs held familiarity, comfort even. Underneath the sniping, there was history. "You two have known each other a long time," she said. "Since we were boys," Kaelen said. "He used to steal my practice blades and hide them in the resonance gardens." "I was training your reflexes," Varos said. "You shouldn't rely on servants for everything." "You were 8, Kaelen said. "You just liked seeing me frustrated." "That too," Varos admitted. Liora smiled, despite everything. "My mentor used to steal my boots so I'd learn to move barefoot. Said leather soles made thieves lazy." "Did it work?" Kaelen asked. "I haven't been caught by a floorboard in years," she said. "Except for the rune on the envoy's stairs," he reminded her. "That was cheating," she said. "You people hide magic in everything." He inclined his head, conceding the point. Silence fell again, but it felt lighter now. After the meal, they walked back toward Kaelen's chambers along one of the quieter corridors. The court seemed to be holding its breath. The usual background murmur of activity dimmed. Even the floating lanterns glowed more softly, as though wary of drawing attention. Halfway there, Kaelen slowed, one hand going to his temple. Liora's heart jumped. "Is it the curse?" "No," he said slowly. "Or not directly. A vision." "Now?" Varos said sharply. "Without a resonance surge?" "They have been changing," Kaelen said, "since she arrived." He braced himself against the wall, eyes half closing. Liora stepped closer, resisting the urge to grab his arm. "What do you see?" He inhaled, exhaled, his voice low. "You, in the resonance hall, not as you were today, older, worn. You're holding a knife to your own palm. Blood falls on the inner circle's lines. The curse coils like smoke. Then," he broke off, jaw tightening. "Then what?" Varos demanded. "Then it stops fighting," Kaelen whispered. "It doesn't vanish. It settles, reforms, like a knot pulling tighter, but into a new shape." "Is that good?" Liora asked. "I don't know," Kaelen said.
You looked resolute and tired. Liora's skin prickled. "If this is what accepting a bond looks like, I don't appreciate the preview." "Visions are not certain," Sereth's voice said behind them. They turned. The seer stood in the corridor, hood down, hair catching the soft light. Her expression was thoughtful. "I felt the pattern shift," she said. "Kaelen's visions touched on a path that includes you, Liora. That is why it struck so suddenly." "Because I'm here?" Liora said. "Yes," Sereth said. "And because you are already changing the curse's options. It has to redraw its branches." "My life is an annoying ink blot," Liora muttered. Sereth smiled faintly. "An ink blot can reveal far more than a neat line." Liora scrubbed a hand over her face. "Enough metaphors. I'm tired of feeling like a riddle. I need something solid. Is there anything at all about this you can state plainly?" Sereth's gaze gentled. "Plainly, then, you are not responsible for what our ancestors did. You are not obligated to fix it. You can walk away. But if you choose to help, you may save more lives than you will ever see. And it will cost you something real, perhaps more than you think you can afford. Plain. Awful. So either I live with knowing I could have helped but didn't," Liora said quietly, "or I help and risk losing myself." "Yes," Sereth said, "and in either case, the choice is heavy. But you are not the only one who will carry it." She glanced at Kaelen. He straightened, meeting Leora's gaze. "You will not be bound alone. If any bond is forged, it will tie to me as well. I will not ask you to stand at the hinge of two worlds while I watch from a safe distance." Varos swore again. "You're determined to make my life miserable." "I'm determined not to repeat our worst mistake," Kaelen said. Leora's chest ached. She had not asked to care about any of this. Her world had been small before. Aaron, the apothecary, the alleys. Steal enough to survive, don't get caught. To think that her blood carried echoes of a decision made centuries ago. She wanted to rage at someone, but there was no clear target. The culprits were long dead. The ones standing before her now were trying, in their flawed way, to mend what had been broken. And Kaelen, curse-worn and stubborn, was willing to tie his fate to hers. "I need to see something," she said abruptly. Kaelen tilted his head. "What?" "The pact," she said. "Or what's left of it. The place where it was made. Records. Anything." Sereth's eyes lit. "The archive," Varos grimaced. Of course she wants the one place in the court that is even more dangerous than the resonance hall. "Dangerous how?" Liora asked. "Memory accumulates there," Sereth said. "Ink, stone, resonance echoes. The curse has left marks on it over the years."
"It will not like you walking among its oldest threads. Then it will have to put up with me," Liora said. "If I'm going to decide anything, I want to know what I'm deciding for." Kaelen studied her for a long moment. "You're sure?" "No," she said, "but that hasn't stopped me yet." His lips curved in that slow, reluctant smile again. "Very well, we go to the archive." "Now," Varos said, "you want to drag a half-exhausted prince, a mortal hinge, and a sarcastic noble into a cursed library before dawn? Do you have a better idea?" Kaelen asked. "Yes," Varos said. "Sleep." Liora almost laughed. Sereth lifted a hand. "The archive is quieter now than it will be after the court fully rouses. If the curse is going to notice her there, it will do so no matter when we go. I would rather face it with fewer onlookers." Varos exhaled through his nose. "Fine. Let it never be said I shied away from a library." "Ghosts?" Liora repeated. "Not literal ones," Sereth said. "Usually." "That's not helping," Liora muttered. The archive lay beneath the court. They descended through a spiral stair carved directly into the stone, the air growing cooler and thinner with each step. Crystals embedded in the walls lit as they passed, then dimmed behind them, marking their passage. Leora's hand brushed the rock. It felt old, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, and something else. A hum. Like distant voices. At the bottom, the stair opened into a vast chamber. Shelves rose from floor to ceiling, some carved into the walls themselves, others freestanding. They were crammed with scrolls, books, crystal tablets, even strange transparent discs that caught the light. The air smelled of dust and something sharper, like the crisp edge of a frost-bitten leaf. The archive seemed to stretch forever. Yet despite its size, it was hushed, almost claustrophobic. The resonance here was thick with memories. Liora took a careful breath. "This is a lot." "It is our realm's memory," Sereth said softly. "Every agreement, every law, every binding, including the pact." Kaelen's shoulders tensed subtly. This place held his history too. His family's mistakes, their burdens. "Where do we start?" Liora asked. Sereth pointed. "There, the section on inter-realm accords." They followed her through narrow aisles. The shelves here grew stranger. Some held books whose pages turned by themselves, stopping on entries as if waiting. Others cradled single stones, each etched with symbols that glowed faintly. Finally, Sereth stopped before a heavy silver-bound volume resting on a pedestal. The metal shimmered with its own light, patterns of moons and tide lines etched across the cover. "The Accord of Veils," she said. "The pact that was meant to balance our realms." Liora's fingers hovered just above the cover. "May I?" "Yes," Sereth said. "But be aware, this is not like reading a street ledger. It is infused with resonance. It may answer you." "Everything in this place talks," Liora muttered. "Fine. Let's see what your ancestors signed us up for." She laid her hands on the cover. Cold surged through her palms, up her arms, into her chest. Not the biting cold of the curse's fractures, but something older, deeper. The sensation of standing on a cliff edge while a vast, unseen tide rushed far below. The silver patterns on the cover shifted, flowing under her fingers. Her vision blurred. When it cleared, she was no longer standing in the archive. She stood on the same silver lake from her dream, but this time it was bright with starlight, the surface uncracked. Figures stood opposite her, reflections perfectly mirrored below. On one side, regal fae in moon silver and shadow. On the other, humans in sturdy clothes, faces both wary and hopeful. At the center stood a woman with hair like Liora's. Dark, thick braids coiled at her neck. Her eyes held the same stubborn tilt. A faint, familiar line cut between her brows. She spoke, and though the language was different, the meaning brushed Liora's mind like a remembered lullaby. "We are tired of being broken by things we cannot see. Tides that rise strangely, storms that come when the sky is clear. Our children dreaming of your halls and waking with bleeding noses. If you tie us to this, do it openly, do it honestly. Give us a place in the pattern, not merely its fallout." Opposite her, a Fey woman stepped forward, her silver crown catching the light. "We seek the same," she said. "Our court fractures when your realm bleeds. The veil between us tears when you forget us. We need anchors who remember, who can tell us when the world shifts." They joined hands. "Then we bind," the Fey Queen said. "Our resonance to your line, our protection to your lives, our warnings to your dreams. In exchange, you will stand where worlds touch and speak when they strain. We will listen. We will answer." "We will hold you to that," the human woman said. "Remember this." They cut their palms, let blood fall onto the lake. The ripples glowed, then settled. Liora felt the echo of that cut in her own hand, though her skin remained unbroken. The vision shifted. The same lake, darker now, the stars dimmer. The human woman was older, lines deepening at the corners of her eyes. Her hand twitched slightly as if from an old injury. She stood alone. Opposite her, the Fey Queen did not appear. Instead, a group of Fey nobles stood at a distance, their faces closed. Kaelen's grandfather among them, his father, their features younger but unmistakable. One of them said, "We cannot keep doing this."
Their grief spills into us. Their fear distorts our magic. We are being pulled down by their weight. They are not weights, the woman said, voice hoarse. They are your word made flesh. You promised. A promise made in different times, another Fey said. We did not foresee war, famine, plagues. Their suffering now is like an endless tide. We are drowning. So are we, the woman whispered. That is why we need you. The nobles exchanged looks. One by one, they turned away. Leora's chest ached. She wanted to reach out, to grab them, to shout, to remind them that this loneliness would become their own. But the vision was already shifting. The lake again, empty on the Fey side. The woman, the ancestor whose face mirrored Leora's, stood trembling. She cut her palm. Blood fell. For a moment, nothing happened. Then something in the water twisted. The reflection of the stars warped, pulling tight around her blood like a snare. The woman staggered back, eyes wide. Her breath came in ragged gasps. "What have you done?" she whispered. The lake did not answer with a voice. It answered with a feeling, a heavy, inexorable pull. The pact, Liora realized. Abandoned but not undone, still hungry, still wanting equilibrium. So it had taken what it could, a binding without consent, stretching through bloodlines and generations, clawing at resonance from both sides. It had become a curse. The vision snapped. Liora stumbled back, gasping. She was in the archive again, hands still pressed to the Accord's cover. Kaelen's grip on her shoulders kept her upright. "What did you see?" he asked urgently. She swallowed, throat raw. "Everything." Her voice shook. She forced herself to breathe. "They meant well," she said. "At first, your queen and someone like me. They made a pact that was messy, but honest. Then things got hard. Your nobles pulled away. They left her standing there, still bound, still holding the weight, with no one listening. And the pact got angry." Sarith's eyes were wide. "It adapted," Liora said, "badly. It tightened around whatever it could. Our bloodlines, yours. It turned protection into pressure. That explains the curse's urgency," Sarith murmured. "It is the pact, constantly trying to force balance onto a system that no longer has agreed rules." Leora's hands shook. "If we don't fix this, it will keep strangling both sides until something gives." Varos exhaled slowly. "If we do fix it, we risk creating a new binding that could go just as wrong." "Not if we write it differently," Liora said. They all looked at her. She swallowed her fear and went on. "The problem wasn't the idea of connection. It was trust. They made a pact, and then one side broke faith. You can't fix that with more pretty words. If there's going to be any new bond, it has to be balanced. With shared cost, shared choice." "You speak as if you've written treaties before," Varos said, half ironic. "I've negotiated with landlords," Liora said, "and apothecaries, and thieves who thought they owned streets they didn't." She lifted her chin. "Patterns are patterns. This one is just bigger." Kaelen's hand tightened briefly on her shoulder. "What do you suggest?" She took a breath. "If we decide to forge a new bond, it can't be like the old one, bound to my blood whether I want it or not," she said. "It has to be between people, not lines on a ledger. You and me, for a start. Two idiots choosing to tie ourselves together with full knowledge of the consequences." Kaelen's expression shifted. Shock, pain, hope, all tangled. Liora, I haven't decided yet, she said quickly. I meant that as an example. Some of the light in his eyes dimmed, but he nodded. Understood. But whoever it is, she continued, both sides have to be equally bound. If your realm suffers, the human at the center feels it. If the human's world fractures, your court shares the burden. No more pawning off pain across the veil. Sereth nodded slowly. Mutual vulnerability. A terrifying but effective deterrent to betrayal. And the terms have to be written down in a way that can't be twisted, Liora said, tapping the silver volume. No more vague, we promise to protect you nonsense. Specific things, specific limits, and a way to break the bond if both sides agree it's doing more harm than good. Varos whistled softly. You want to give the pact a fail-safe. Yes, Liora said. Every lock needs a key. Silence stretched. It could work, said at last. If the pact-turned curse is truly just a wounded agreement thrashing for equilibrium, offering it a cleaner structure might soothe it, redirect it. Or it could tear both realms apart, Varos said, if the attempt fails. It will tear them apart anyway if we do nothing, Liora said quietly. Just slower, with more collateral. Kaelen's gaze locked onto hers. There was no princely distance in it now, just raw human fear. And something else. Something that glowed, fragile and steady. You should not have to carry this, he said. You shouldn't either, she replied. But here we are. He exhaled, a half-laugh that sounded almost broken. Here we are. Sereth folded her hands. We do not have to decide tonight. The masquerade lasts 7 nights. We have time to consider, to test, to refine the terms of any new bond. And we must also consider the people who will live under its effects, Varos added, on both sides. Not just our prince and our thief. Then we talk to them, Liora said. Your court, my city, maybe. At least the parts of it that still feel whatever echo is there. Kaelen looked pained. For you to return and speak of this? I'd be careful, she said. I'm not stupid. But Astraphen isn't blind. People feel things. Strange tides. Bad luck that doesn't make sense. You're not the only ones noticing cracks. Cracks in your world as well, Sereth murmured. Of course. Liora thought of Aaron's cough, of the way the well water had tasted odd last winter, metallic at the back of the tongue, of neighbors talking in hushed tones about the birds flying in strange patterns at night. The longer we pretend nothing's wrong, she said, the more it will hurt when everything breaks. Kaelen's hand shifted from her shoulder to her forearm, fingers curling lightly, not gripping, not demanding, just there. You sound like my better instincts, he said softly. You have those? She said, attempting levity. He smiled faintly. Occasionally. His thumb brushed her sleeve, an absent, steadying motion that did more to calm her than any magic broth. In that quiet, echoing archive, surrounded by the weight of centuries, Liora realized the true shape of what she was being asked to choose. Not just her brother's health, not just one prince's curse. 2 worlds. Her life had never felt so small and so vast at once. She was frightened, she was angry, and, beneath both, a stubborn, fierce resolve she hadn't known she possessed was beginning to take root. I'm not promising anything yet, she said, more to herself than to the others. But if I agree to this, it will be on terms that don't turn anyone into a silent sacrifice. That, Sereth said, is already more mercy than most old pacts ever knew. Varos tilted his head. You know, for a thief, you're alarmingly principled. I steal from people who can afford to lose, she said, not from those who can't breathe. His mouth twitched. Maybe there is hope for us yet. The resonance in the archive shifted. A slow, approving hum that hummed in the stone around them. Above, somewhere far away in the great hall, the crack in the ceiling shivered. For the first time since it appeared, it did not widen. It waited. The days in the moon court blurred together, counted not in sunrises, but in the waxing and waning of the great pale disk that hung at the heart of the palace ceiling. Liora learned the rhythm of it, how the light in the corridors shifted with the moon's phase, how the lanterns brightened or dimmed in sympathy, how the very stone seemed to breathe, and how the cracks, when they appeared, always seemed to widen a little more when she and Kaelen walked too close to the heart of things. They spent the next nights arguing with old ghosts. It turned out that pacts could be rewritten, but not easily.
Not when they had sunk roots into generations, wrapping themselves around blood and bone. The accord of veils did not want to be moved. It sulked like a wronged dragon, showing them half-truths in the archive, resisting every attempt to pin its intentions into words. Specific terms, Liora repeated for the 4th time, pacing between 2 tall shelves. Clear responsibilities, mutually agreed ways to end the bond. How hard is that? Very, Varos said from his seat on a nearby table. When one side of the pact is technically an idea that thinks it's a tide. Sarith smiled faintly, fingers hovering above the silver-bound volume. He's not entirely wrong. Kaelen watched Liora with that steady, intent gaze she was beginning to recognize as his thinking face. "What would you make the first line?" he asked. Liora stopped pacing. The question felt like standing on a ledge. "This time, we do not lie," she said. Varos's brows shot up. Bold. Sarikh's eyes warmed. Honest. Kaelen's mouth curved. Agreed. He took the quill Sarith offered and, with deliberate strokes, wrote the words in both the court's flowing script and Osterfen's angular letters. The ink glowed briefly, then settled into the page. The accord shivered under their hands. For a heartbeat, Liora felt something like surprise from it. Not anger. Not yet. They worked from there. Mornings, or what passed for them when the court's light softened, found Liora hunched over the table with Sarith, hammering out terms. Afternoons she spent walking the palace with Kaelen, testing how the curse responded in different spaces. Evenings they returned to the archive to see what echoes their efforts had stirred. At first, the court watched them with distant curiosity, then with open unease. "Word spreads," Varos said one night as they left the archive. "Half the court thinks you're here to save us. The other half thinks you're the spark that will finish the job the curse started." "And you?" Liora asked. He hesitated. "I think," he said, "that my opinion matters less than the fact that you and Kaelen are the only ones actually doing anything." They stepped into one of the palace's inner courtyards. A pool of still water reflected the moonlight. Slender, pale trees grew around it, their leaves whispering faintly in a wind Liora couldn't feel. Kaelen stopped at the edge of the pool. "There is something I have not shown you," he said. "That's less dramatic," he said, "but important." He gestured to the water. "The pools here are attuned to the veil. With the right focus, they can reflect places in your realm that resonate with ours. The old pact used them often." Liora's heart lurched. "You can see Asterfen?" "Only certain parts," Sarith said. "Places where the veil is thin. But yes." Kaelen's expression gentled. "You have asked about your brother every day," he said. "You deserve more than my word that we are trying to help him. You deserve to see him." Her throat tightened. She stepped closer to the pool, the hem of her borrowed court robe whispering against the stone. "How?" she asked, voice thin. "Think of him," Kaelen said softly, "as clearly as you can. His face, his breath, the way his presence feels in a room. I will guide the rest." She swallowed and did as he asked. Aaron, at 8, laughing as he tried to balance on a low wall and fell into her arms. Aaron at 12, coughing through a winter that never quite ended. Aaron just last week, pale and thin and stubbornly joking about swamp-flavored medicine. The shape of his hand in hers, the sound of his voice when he said her name. The water trembled.
Kaelen's hands moved in a pattern she had seen him use in the resonance hall, drawing light from the air. He let it spill into the pool. Images swirled in the water. At first they were only smudges of light and shadow. Then, slowly, they sharpened. A small, cramped room appeared in the pool's surface. The patchwork blanket, the rickety chair, the damp-stained wall. Her chest clenched at the sight. On the bed, Aaron slept, his hair damp against his forehead. His chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. A half-empty mug sat on the table beside him. Liora covered her mouth. "He's alive," she whispered. "He's thinner, but alive." "Yes," Kaelen said quietly. "The vial of resonance medicine we sent through the veil reached your apothecary 2 nights ago. She used it in his tincture. It has bought him time." Liora blinked back sudden tears. "You did that and didn't tell me?" "I was not certain it had worked," Kaelen said. "I did not want to raise your hope until I could see it myself." The anger that flared in her chest was brief and shaky. It dissolved quickly into relief so fierce it made her dizzy. "Thank you," she said. "I know you think it is nothing compared to the curse, but—" "It is not nothing," he said. "He is as important as any fracture in our ceiling." The pool's image blurred, then steadied. Aaron shifted in his sleep, lips moving. For a moment, Liora thought she heard her own name, faint as a sigh. "He can't see us?" she asked. "No," Serith said gently. "The pools reflect. They do not project. That is a different art." "Good," Liora said, voice thick. "I don't want him knowing I'm doing something this stupid." Kaelen's hand brushed her shoulder, a light, grounding touch. "You are not stupid. I am considering binding myself to a cursed prince and a temperamental pact," she said. "The word you're looking for is reckless." He smiled faintly. "Brave." She stared at Aaron's sleeping face a moment longer, memorizing every frail line. Then she stepped back. The image faded. "I have to fix this," she said, more to herself than to anyone. "For him, for you, for everyone caught in the middle of that broken promise." "You do not have to," Kaelen said softly. "You are choosing to." "And you can't talk me out of it," she said. He took a slow breath, weighing his next words. "I know." Varos watched them, arms crossed, face unreadable. "I assume this means you are leaning toward accepting the bond," he said. Liora met his gaze. "I'm leaning toward not letting this curse win." "That is not the same as answering the question," he replied. "No," she said, "but it's closer than I was last night." The court did not like closer. That night, as the masquerade resumed, the cracks in the ballroom ceiling pulsed with a faint, unhealthy light. The masked nobles danced more stiffly, their laughter too bright. The music sounded slightly off, as if some of the instruments were being played just a fraction out of tune. Liora stood with Kaelen at the edge of the hall. The mask settled on her face, the weight of the near future pressing on her shoulders. "You're sure you should be here?" she asked. "If the curse lashes out again." "If it lashes out, it will lash out wherever we are," he said. "At least here, the court can see what we are trying to do." "And what is that tonight?" she asked, "aside from not dying?" He studied the shifting constellations above. "We need the curse's attention. We intend to draw it here, in front of witnesses, then divert it to the resonance hall. Once there, we attempt to offer it the new bond. And if it doesn't like our offer?" He considered that. "Then it will try to eat us," he said, "and we will have to be faster." "You call that not very dramatic?" she muttered. "You have a problem." His lips twitched. "I have several. Most of them are glowing ominously over our heads." Varos approached, his blade mask gleaming. "The wardens are in position," he said. "Sereth is ready in the hall. The noble factions are either terrified, furious, or pretending not to care." "So everyone is united then," Liora said, "in being worried." "Fear is a powerful glue," Varos said. He looked at Kaelen, then at Liora. "Are you sure about this?" "No," they said in unison. Varos sighed. "At least you're honest." The music rose, a swell of sound that made the lanterns vibrate. Dancers turned, spun, masks flashing. The whole hall moved like a single glittering creature. The crack in the ceiling pulsed. Kaelen's hand found Liora's. Not grabbing, not urging, just there, warm through her glove. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "remember this. You owe this curse nothing."
"You owe me nothing. If at any point you wish to stop, say the word." "And you'll listen?" she asked skeptically. "Yes," he said, "even if it kills me." Her chest ached. "Stop making it harder to walk away." "That is not my intention," he said, expression earnest. "I only do not want you to feel trapped." "I've felt trapped my whole life," she said, "by debt, by walls, by someone else's bad choices. This is the first time I've chosen a cage with my eyes open." "A cage?" he repeated, wounded. "A hopefully decorative one with wide bars," she amended. "And you're in it too, so that's something." He let out a startled laugh. The music dropped suddenly to a single sustained note. Every lantern flared white. The crack in the ceiling burst open. It did not shatter all at once. That might have been kinder. Instead, it widened as if some invisible hand were pulling it apart, slowly, inexorably. Lines of darkness spiderwebbed across the pale stone, an ink stain spreading through parchment. The dancers froze. Someone screamed. Masks turned upward. The air grew thick, hard to breathe. "Now," Kaelen said. Wardens along the walls raised their crystal rods. Beams of light shot upward, trying to knit the fractures back together. The curse slammed into them. Darkness poured from the cracks, not absence of light, but the wrong kind of it, a shimmering black that caught reflections like oil. It oozed down the walls in long, dripping tendrils, reaching hungrily for the crowd. Liora's hand tightened around Kaelen's. The mask on her face pulsed, heat radiating along the filigree. She saw, superimposed over the ballroom, another hall, Astrafen's governor's house, its ceiling cracked from damp and neglect. Then their small room, plaster fissured above Aaron's bed. The well outside, its stones shifting slightly. Two worlds, same fracture. "Liora," Kaelen's voice came from very far away. "Can you walk?" She tore her gaze from the cracks. "Yes, we need to move," he said. "The curse is not just attacking, it's testing." "Testing what?" she demanded. "Whether it can pull both realms through the same tear." The darkness descended. The nobles scattered, dresses and cloaks flashing as they fled toward the exits. Some were too slow. Tendrils of shadow brushed their shoulders, leaving behind patches of corrupted light that crackled and hissed. Kaelen raised his free hand, drawing a barrier of moonlight between them and an oncoming wave. It hit the shield with a screech like tearing crystal. He staggered. Liora braced him. "Go," Varos shouted from somewhere to their right, his own blade of light cleaving a shadow tendril in two. "Get to the hall. We'll hold it here." "We cannot leave them," Kaelen said between gritted teeth. "You can't help them if you're dead," Varos snapped. "Move!" Liora yanked on Kaelen's arm. "He's right. We have to get to the resonance hall. That's the only place we have a chance to redirect this." His jaw clenched. For a heartbeat, she saw the prince and the person war inside him. Then he nodded, once. They ran. The corridor outside the ballroom was chaos. Courtiers stumbled and shoved, masks askew. Some clutched at small glowing charms. Others simply ran, their fear a tangible pressure in the air. The palace itself shook, dust fell from the ceiling. The floating lanterns flickered wildly. At one junction, a mass of people blocked their way entirely. "This path is faster," Kaelen said, veering left into a narrower passage. "Where does it go?" Liora asked. "Through the old observatory," he said, "then down to the hall." "What's in the observatory?" she pressed. "Memories," he said, "and stars, and, historically, bad decisions." "Wonderful," she muttered.
They burst into a circular chamber whose glass dome roof showed a sky that was not quite the one outside. Stars in unfamiliar patterns wheeled overhead, their movements slower than the chaos below. Tall, delicate instruments stood at intervals, their filigree arms trembling as the building shook. The air here felt thin, drawn upward as if the room itself were holding its breath. Leora's skin prickled. Something's wrong. The curse shouldn't be this strong here, Kaelen said. The observatory is anchored. The floor warped. One moment, the stone beneath their feet was solid. The next, it rippled like a pond with a rock thrown into it. Liora lost her balance, pitching forward. Kaelen pulled her back, but the movement threw him off as well. They crashed into one of the instruments, metal chiming as it toppled. Darkness flooded the room from the edges in, a wave rising too fast to outrun. Leora's mask flared. For a heartbeat, she saw everything twice. The observatory, and, layered over it, Astrafen's cliffside at night. The wind off the sea, the faint lights of the city behind her, the sensation of standing on the edge of a drop that went on forever. At the cliff's edge stood a woman with her face. Not the ancestor from the lake, but a different one. Younger, eyes wide, hand pressed to her chest. "I didn't ask for this," the woman whispered, wind tearing the words away. "You can't make me carry this alone." The darkness at the cliff's base surged. Leora's body moved before her mind. She reached for Kaelen. His fingers closed around hers, solid in the swirl of visions. "Liora!" His voice cut through the echo. "Stay with me. Do you hear me? Look at me." She dragged her gaze from the drowning cliff. His eyes were right there, close enough that she could see the faint ring of silver around his pupils, brighter now, almost luminescent. "The curse is using your line's memory against you," he said.
"It's trying to show you every time the pact failed." "It's working," she said through numb lips. "Then don't look at it," he said. "Look at me." "I'm not sure you're better," she muttered. He huffed out a breath that might have been a laugh. The darkness rolled closer. "Sereth!" he shouted, voice cracking through the warped air. "If you can hear me, pull!" The air shuddered. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a thread of pale light shot through the darkness, thin as a hair. It wrapped itself around Leora's wrist, cool and insistent. Another wrapped around Kaelen's. The floor dropped. She felt herself falling, not down, but through. The observatory, the cliff, the ballroom, all spun together and then ripped away. Her stomach lurched. The only solid thing was Kaelen's hand, grim and unshakable. Then they hit stone. The resonance hall. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. She lay for a heartbeat staring at the ceiling, which, blessedly, was still smooth and uncracked. Sereth leaned over her, hair escaping its pins, eyes alight with both fear and fierce satisfaction. "It worked," she said. "I dragged you through." "Dragged is right," Liora wheezed. Kaelen groaned beside her, pushing himself up. "Next time," he said, "warn me before you tear the floor out from under us." "I warned the curse," Sereth said. "It didn't listen. You did." Varro stumbled in through the hall's main entrance, cloak askew, mask gone. A shallow cut bled along his cheekbone. "You made it," he said, relief bleeding through his irritation. "The ballroom is a nightmare. We can't hold it much longer." Liora staggered to her feet. The circles carved into the hall's floor burned with light, brighter than before. The air thrummed, heavy with potential. Or danger. Perhaps both. "The curse is using the main fracture as a lever," Sereth said tersely. "If we don't redirect it here, it will tear the ballroom open completely. And if it does that, the tear will reach your realm, Liora. The path is already half-formed." "Then we do this now," Liora said, throat dry. Her heart hammered. "Not tomorrow, not after more calm discussions and careful drafting of clauses. Now." Kaelen looked at her, really looked, and in his gaze she saw the same understanding, the same fear. "You don't have to decide under duress," he said quietly. "There is no other time," she said. "Duress is what we have." Varro swore softly. "I hate it when the mortal is right." Sereth straightened, her expression settling into something like a mask of her own, the one she wore when weaving futures and truths together. "The new terms are unfinished," she warned. "We have broad strokes, not precise lines." "Then we give the curse the broad strokes," Liora said. "We can refine later." "It doesn't work like that," Varro snapped. "You can't just promise an ancient magic you'll sort the details out later." "Maybe you can," Sereth murmured, eyes distant, "if the first stroke is strong enough." She turned to Liora. "You understand what you're offering?" "Not completely," Liora said. "I don't think I can until it's done, but I know what I'm not offering. I'm not offering to be your nameless anchor. If this bond happens, it happens between me and him." She nodded toward Kaelen. He flinched, just slightly. Sereth's gaze sharpened. "Not the court, not the realm, but the two of you." "Yes," Liora said. "Let the realms connect through us, but on our terms. Human and Fae, side by side, not one beneath the other." Varro stared at her. "Do you realize what that means? Every strain between our worlds will travel through you both. Every joy, too, yes, but—" "I live with strain," she said. "I know its weight. I also know what it's like to carry it alone. This way, at least, we share it." Kaelen moved to stand in front of her, the light from the floor casting sharp lines across his face. "You asked what you owe me," he said softly. "The answer is nothing. But He broke off, jaw working. "What?" she asked. "I find that I cannot ask for this bond without saying this first," he said, each word careful. "You are not just a solution to my curse. You are you, stubborn and infuriating and braver than anyone I've ever met. If you walk away, it will hurt, but not because my visions will be wrong, because I will miss you." Her breath hitched. That was as close to a confession as he could manage, wrapped in duty and fear and the weight of their worlds. It was enough. "Say the word," he said. "I'll call it off. We'll find another way." She stepped closer until there was barely a handspan between them, the hall's light painting patterns on their clothes. "I don't want another way," she said. "Not if it means leaving you to drown alone." His eyes closed briefly, as if her words hurt and healed at once. When he opened them again, something had settled in his gaze, a decision. "Then we do this together," he said. Sereth exhaled, long and steady. "So be it." She moved to the circles at the center of the hall. The lines brightened, spiraling outward. "Liora," she said, "stand here. Kaelen, opposite her. Varros at the perimeter. If the curse tries to break the pattern, you cut it off." Varros nodded, expression grim. "Gladly." Liora stepped into the inner circle. It hummed under her feet like a living thing. Kaelen took his place opposite. Pale light rose around his hands, drifting like mist. Sereth raised her arms. "By resonance and memory," she intoned, "by promise broken and promise remade, we call the accord of veils to witness." The air thickened. Liora felt it, the same vast presence she'd sensed in the archive, in the lake visions, in the mask's whisper. The pact, the curse, the wounded agreement. It coiled around the hall like a storm cloud, invisible but heavy. Sereth's voice rose. "Here stands Liora Vale, of the line once called Valen. Here stands Kaelen Ardyn, Prince of the Moon Court. They offer not blind obedience, but mutual bond. Not silent anchoring, but shared path. Hear their terms." The presence pressed closer. A black crack tore open in the hall's ceiling. It wasn't as dramatic as the ballroom fracture, but it was focused, like a knife instead of a hammer. The darkness that oozed from it felt more deliberate, curious. Leora's skin crawled. "It's listening," she whispered. "Good," Sereth said. "Now make it an offer it cannot refuse." Kaelen drew in a breath, shoulders squared. "Accord," he said, addressing the darkness with the same respect he used for living beings. "Your first promise was balance, not hunger. Our ancestors twisted you into something else. We offer you a way back." Liora swallowed. "We offer a bond between us," she said. "Between human and fae, living, breathing, choosing. No more lines of blood dragged along without consent. No more anchors that don't know what they're holding." The darkness rippled. Images flashed in Leora's mind. The lake, the cliff, the fractured ballroom, Erin's coughing form. The curse was showing her its understanding of balance. Pain mirrored across realms. She forced herself not to flinch. "We agree," Kaelen said, voice steady, "that if our realms tear, we will feel it, both of us. If your magic surges, it will pass through us first. If our world causes harm, it will echo in us as well. But in return, you will stop strangling every thread you touch." Leora nodded, heart pounding. "We agree that if either of us believes this bond is doing more harm than good, we can call for its end, together, not one side alone. Both." The darkness shivered. Sereth's eyes burned. "You must seal it," she said, "with something the curse respects. Blood, yes, but more than that. Trust." "Trust," Leora echoed, dizzy. "Right." Her gaze locked with Kaelen's. Trust had never come easily to her. Life had taught her that promises were often just prettier cages. Yet here she stood, about to tie herself to someone whose realm had once abandoned her ancestors. And she trusted him. Not his titles, not his court. Him. "Give me your hand," she said. He obeyed without a flicker of hesitation. She held his gaze, then drew the small knife from her belt. Its hilt was worn smooth, its blade familiar. The knife she'd used to pry open windows, to cut purse strings, to carve apples for Aaron on long nights. She pressed the point to her palm. Kaelen's fingers tightened around her wrist. "Leora," he said, low. "You know what my vision showed? Your blood on these lines. You tired, older, you—" "Visions lie," she said. "Or, at least, they dramatize." He almost smiled. It died quickly. "I don't want you to be hurt. I don't want you to be cursed," she replied. "We don't get everything we want." She cut. Pain flared, sharp and bright. Blood welled up, dark against her skin. Kaelen inhaled sharply, as if the slice had been his own. Without prompting, he took the knife from her and, with the same deliberate care, cut his own palm. Pale blood, faintly luminous, mingled with hers as their hands clasped. The circles under their feet blazed. The darkness above them surged downward, rushing for their joined hands like a river finding a new channel. Leora braced herself. It hit. Pain shot up her arm, through her chest, into her skull. It wasn't physical pain, not exactly. It was every sharp, unfinished thing she'd ever carried. Fear, anger, grief, flaring at once. It was the memory of every broken promise in her bloodline, trying to decide whether this was another. Kaelen's grip on her hand did not falter. She felt his pain too. Years of vision slamming into him, nights spent half-mad with images of falling stars and screaming stone. The quiet terror of realizing his mother's fate was moving toward him, unstoppable. The weight of being prince and cursed object at once. The curse poured into them both, testing, probing, seeking weakness. "We can't hold this," Varos shouted from the perimeter, voice distant. "Sereth!" "Wait," Sereth said through gritted teeth. "It's choosing."
The darkness coiled around their joined hands, then split. Half of it flowed into Kaelen, sinking into his skin like ink. She saw it head straight for the brand hidden beneath his sleeve, a twisting, knot-like mark over his forearm that she'd glimpsed only once before. It lit up, lines of black and silver writhing. The other half flowed into Liora. It didn't mark her skin, not visibly. Instead, she felt it etch itself along her ribs, spine, heart. An outline, not a burn, a path. She gasped. Images surged. Astrafen's alleys, the moon court's halls, Aaron's room, the ballroom ceiling. They all layered over one another until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Then, slowly, they settled into a kind of alignment. Two maps laid on top of each other, no longer fighting, just overlapping. The darkness shuddered. It didn't feel angry now. It felt confused, exhausted, the way she had felt the night she'd collapsed after working through 3 storms to make rent, only to realize she'd miscounted her coins. "We are not your enemies," she whispered through the pain. "We are your chance to stop tying yourself in knots." Something in the hall's air eased. The crack in the ceiling stopped widening. For one wild, impossible heartbeat, Liora thought it might actually work. Then the curse shifted. It found something it had missed, the brand on Kaelen's arm. The original anchor point layered over the new. And it did what it had always done. It tightened. Kaelen's breath hitched. His eyes went wide. The lines of the brand flared stark black, burning through his sleeve. Light and shadow wrestled there, the knot flexing. "Liora," he choked. "It's—" She felt it too now, more sharply than ever. The brand was a knot tied wrong, threading the old pact through his flesh in a way that twisted every new connection. As long as it remained, no new bond could lie cleanly over it. It would always pull toward destruction. Sirit's voice cut through the crackling air. "The brand must be removed." "How?" Varos shouted. "Only someone he trusts can do it," Sirith said. "If he tries alone, the curse will devour him. If I try, it will fight. It must be someone who stands inside the new bond with him." Leora's vision blurred. Her hand still gripped Kaelen's, blood mixing, pain singing in her veins. "Don't," he gasped. "If you touch it—" "If I don't, you die," she said, voice hoarse. The darkness above them convulsed. The hall shook. Somewhere in the palace, distant but clear in her bones, something cracked wide. The fracture between realms was no longer hypothetical. It was opening. She felt Astrafen's cliffs tremble. Heard, in the back of her mind, Aaron's cough hitch into a choking silence. Choice slammed into her with all the force of 2 worlds straining. Run. Let go. Find some smaller life where her biggest problem was whether the apothecary would sell her half a vial of medicine. Or step toward the brand and risk becoming nothing more than another burned name in the curse's long, bitter memory. Liora Vale had never much liked being told where she belonged. She let go of Kaelen's hand. His eyes widened, hurt flashing through them, quick, involuntary. Before that hurt could deepen, she caught his other wrist, the one with the brand. Under her fingers, the mark writhed like something alive. She met his gaze, the hall's light and the curse's darkness swirling all around them. "Trust me," she said. He laughed, a shaky, utterly disbelieving sound that still somehow carried pure, reckless faith. "I already do," he said. The darkness screamed. Liora closed her fingers over the brand. Pain tore through them both like a blade. The last thing she heard before the world shattered into blinding, searing light was Sirith's distant, fierce voice. "Hold on to each other. Whatever you see, whatever it shows you, do not let go." Liora held. Kaelen held. The curse dragged them both into the center of itself. Light and darkness tore in opposite directions, ripping the world apart, and Liora with it. She didn't fall. She didn't stand. She hung in a space where there was no ground, no sky, only the shifting pull of two realms colliding. Astrafen's cliff wind blew through her hair, cold and sharp. Mooncourt resonance hummed under her skin like distant thunder. The mask on her face dissolved into dust. Her blood, mingled with Kaelen's, glowed faintly along her fingers. And Kaelen was still there. His hand, her only anchor, gripped hers with desperate, unbroken strength. The curse dragged them deeper. Visions slammed into her one after another, too fast, too bright, too raw to separate. She saw the lake again, silver and star-drenched, the pact being written and broken and twisted. She saw Kaelen as a small boy, terrified and trembling in a storm of visions he couldn't control. She saw her own mother crying over unpaid debts, Aaron coughing blood into a handkerchief, Varos helping a young prince stand after a failed attempt to contain the brand, Sereth alone in her tower, rubbing her temples as she tried to listen to a future made of fractured echoes. She saw the curse's true shape at last. Not a shadow, not a monster, a knot. A terrible, ancient, grief-hardened knot of two realms pulling against each other until the rope frayed. A knot what had been tied in good faith, then abandoned. A knot that had grown angrier with every generation that ignored it. "Liora!" Kaelen's voice broke through the visions. He was beside her, not a projection, not a dream, but truly beside her in this strange in-between place. His brand glowed like molten silver, the curse tightening around it, trying to pull him backward into the darkness where memories screamed and futures bled. "I can't," he gasped, breath ragged. "It's trying to merge the bonds, old and new. It's burning." Liora saw it, the old brand binding him to a pact never meant for him, the new connection she had chosen stretching toward him like a lifeline. Both threads tangled, both threads pulling. "It doesn't want to let go of you," she whispered. "It has to," he said, jaw clenched. "It can't survive in this form, neither can we." The knot pulsed, a monstrous heartbeat. Sereth's voice echoed faintly through the chaos. "Whatever you see, don't let go." The darkness surged. It took form. Not like a creature, not truly, but like the impression of one, fractured lines shaping limbs and eyes from shadow. Tall, ancient. Its face was a mask of moonlight split by a jagged crack, like a reflection shattered by a thrown stone. It stepped toward them. Kaelen tried to shield her, but the thing, the knot given shape, ignored him. Its attention fixed on her. Not angry. Not hateful, lonely. Leora's breath hitched. "You're not trying to hurt us," she whispered. "You're trying to hold everything together. Too tightly. So tightly, you're breaking what little is left." The creature tilted its head. Old packed words whispered around them, the remembered phrases twisting into meaning. Balance must be held. Anchor must not fail. No falling, no breaking, no drifting apart. Hold, hold, hold. It reached for her. Kaelen lunged between them, grabbing her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Liora, listen to me. If you try to pull out the brand, it will attack you instead. You'll be the new anchor, alone." "I know," she choked out. "Then don't do it," his voice cracked. "Don't you dare." Her fingers tightened around his. "I'm not taking it alone." The knot creature surged again, tendrils of memory lights reaching for Kaelen. He cried out as the brand flared. Their bond pulsed in answer. Liora felt his fear, his pain, his longing, his exhausted hope. He felt her determination, her terror,
her love for her brother, her growing, fragile, impossible affection for him. The curse recoiled at that last one, twisting violently. It didn't understand affection. It understood duty, burden, weight. It didn't understand choice. "Kaelen," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his, "give me your trust, completely. No holding back. It can't rewrite what we build unless you let fear in." His breath trembled. "You're asking me to let go of the one weapon I've used to survive," he said. "Fear keeps me from making mistakes." "No," she said softly. "Fear has been keeping you from living." He closed his eyes. Then, slowly, painfully, he exhaled everything he'd been holding. All the shame, all the fear of dying like his mother, all the dread of being a prince doomed to disappoint everyone. His hand tightened around hers. "I trust you," he whispered. The bond between them flared. The curse reeled. For the first time, the knot creaked. A single thread loosened. Liora grabbed it. Pain screamed through her, white-hot, like grabbing a burning rope. The knot creature lunged, but Kaelen stood firm at her side, holding her steady as she pulled. Memories poured over her hands, centuries of promises and betrayals, countless moments where humans and fae had brushed against each other and flinched away. Waves of grief, waves of hope. She pulled harder. The brand on Kaelen's arm writhed like a living thing, its lines snapping, unraveling. "Almost," he gasped, teeth clenched. One last loop remained. The oldest, the one bound by the ancestor with her face. The curse screamed. Liora reached for it. Her hand closed around the final thread. It fought, it thrashed, it tried to show her every failure in her life. Erin's sickness, the debts she couldn't pay, the lies she'd told, the mistakes she'd made. It tried to convince her she was unworthy. But Kaelen's voice reached her, steady as a heartbeat. "You are more than what hurt you. You are more than what broke you. Let it go." She did. The final thread snapped. Silence. Then, the knot unraveled. Light exploded outward, so bright it was like standing inside a star. The creature dissolved, its shadow body scattering like ash in a wind made of moonlight and memory. The crack in the hall ceiling sealed itself with a soft, crystalline sigh. Kaelen collapsed forward. Liora caught him. The brand on his arm was gone. Only smooth, pale skin remained. She pressed her palm to it, breath shaking. "You're free," she whispered. "Kaelen, you're free." His eyes fluttered open, dazed, disbelieving. "Liora, are you—" She was crying. She hadn't realized. Tears slid down her face, but they were soft, not broken. "I'm here," she said. "I'm here." He rested his forehead against her shoulder, shaking with relieved laughter. "It worked," he said. "By the moons, it actually—" He swayed. Liora gasped and tightened her grip. The bond between them pulsed, still present, still alive, but no longer strangled by the curse. Sereth and Varos rushed forward. Varos looked worse for wear, but his grin was fierce. "You did it," he said. "You stubborn, reckless mortals." Sereth knelt beside them, pressing her hands to the glowing lines on the floor. "The hall confirms it," she said, awed. "The curse is gone. The bond remains." Liora looked down at Kaelen. He looked lighter, not just physically, though exhaustion clung to him, but in a deeper way, as if some invisible weight had been lifted from his ribs. "Is it safe?" she asked Sereth quietly, "what we did?" "For now," Sereth said, "and with careful tending, it will remain so. Your bond is not the old pact. It is something new, voluntary, equal." Varos snorted. "Equal! You tied the fate of our prince to a mortal with a mouth sharp enough to cut glass."
Liora wiped her face, sniffed. "You're welcome." Kaelen managed a weak laugh. Then his expression softened as he looked at her. "Liora," he said slowly, "you chose to tie yourself to me, to this realm. I would never demand you stay here. The bond allows movement. You can go home. I know. You can—" his voice wavered. "You can return to your brother, to your life. You don't have to decide anything today." Liora swallowed. Images flickered behind her eyelids. Aaron's sleeping form, the cracked walls of their tiny home, the taste of moonlight broth, Kaelen's hand in hers, the lake mirrored in starlight. She had two worlds now, and both needed her. "I will go home," she said. Kaelen's smile dimmed, but he nodded. "Of course." "And then," she continued, "I will come back." His breath caught. "You mean—" "I mean, I'm not done with you," she said softly, "or with this place, or with fixing what's been broken for so long." The relief that washed over his face was almost enough to undo her all over again. She squeezed his hand. "You're stuck with me now," Varos groaned. "Wonderful, truly wonderful, as if one of you wasn't enough trouble." Sereth only smiled, small, tired, and deeply, deeply satisfied. The hall, newly healed, hummed softly around them. The curse was gone. The moon court was still standing, and Liora Vale was no longer the girl who had stumbled into a masquerade wearing a stolen mask. She was something new, something chosen. Kaelen insisted she rest before returning to Astrafin, but Liora refused until she'd checked the pools again. This time, the water didn't blur or flicker. The vision was clear. Aaron sitting upright, eating a bowl of stew, color returning to his cheeks. The resonance medicine had worked better than expected, with the curse gone. "He looks better," Kaelen whispered, standing beside her. "He does," she said, "and I'll fix the rest when I get home." He hesitated. "Will you tell him about me?" She smiled faintly. "He already thinks I run with dangerous men. Might as well confirm it." Kaelen's ears went faintly pink. Varos choked on a laugh. When Liora stepped back into Astrafin, the air felt thinner, rougher, real, honest. Her feet knew these streets, even if her heart felt stretched between two places. Aaron met her in the doorway, nearly knocking her over in a hug. "You're back," he said into her shoulder. "I promised, didn't I?" she said, her voice thick. For 2 days, she stayed. She cooked, she cleaned, she laughed, she lied about where she'd been, only a little, only enough to keep him from worrying. On the third morning, as dawn broke over the sea cliffs, Liora stood with her pack slung over one shoulder. "You're leaving again," Aaron said quietly. "I'll be back," she said, "but there are things I need to finish." He studied her face, his eyes sharper than she liked. "Whoever he is," Aaron said softly, "he must matter a lot." Liora looked toward the horizon, where the first light of morning painted the sky in silver. "He does," she said, "but it's not just him. It's everything." Aaron smiled. "Then go." She hugged him again, fierce and long. Then she stepped toward the cliff path. The veil shimmered. A hand reached through, pale, familiar, steady. She took it. The moon court rose before her in all its silver glory, restored and humming with quiet magic. Varos stood with arms crossed, pretending not to smile. Sereth inclined her head. Lanterns brightened as she entered, and Kaelen waited for her at the center, the healed skin where his brand had been, catching the light. "When you left," he said softly, "the court felt quieter." "And now?" she asked. "Balanced," he said, "as if something that was missing has returned." She stepped closer. "I'm not a missing piece." "No," he said, "you're a choice." They stood beneath the moon, its light soft and full. He extended his hand, not demanding, not claiming, offering. "Walk with me," he asked. Liora smiled. "Always," she said. And together, hand in hand, they stepped forward, toward a world no longer cursed, toward a bond chosen freely, toward a future built on trust instead of fear. The midnight masquerade was over, but their story had only just begun.